we'll have Emeka For, who is the Director of Strategic Communication, Nigerian Investor Promotion Council, take us on investments and incentives from the federal government. To wrap the whole day up, we'll have the last round of questions and answers, and we'll close the meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, for emphasis, we will not open the floor for question and answers by voice from the audience. They will all have to queue in their questions on the Q&A session so that we can be able to manage those interactions and then send the relevant questions to the relevant people. And if we cannot exhaust the questions, we will come back to the panelists at the end of the session, answer those things, and then send back. His Excellency is here, Prof. Where to go?
Okay, welcome. Thank you.
Excellency, you're welcome.
Thank you, madam.
I guess we are all ready to go.
Amakibe.
Yes.
Please start the meeting. Welcome. We have about 70-something attendees. You need to welcome them. Nobody's talking to them.
Okay.
Please just welcome the attendees.
Thank you, madam.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are all welcome to the very first edition of Imo Economic Development Initiative webinar series. Your Excellency, Senator Pope Uzodimma, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Our Honorable Minister of State Education, Honorable Emeka Nwajuba, would like to welcome you.
Thank you very much, sir.
We also welcome our chairman, distinguished Professor Maurice Iwu, who is the chairman of Imo Economic Development Initiative, and his team. Distinguished Imo citizens, you are all welcome to this webinar. I am sure all of us are very familiar with the catastrophic impact of COVID-19 throughout the entire world, and particularly for our state, Imo State. For you to be part of this session means that you are very interested in how to move Imo forward. We therefore welcome you to be part of this program. Imo State is known as the intellectual and the education capital of Nigeria. There's no doubt about that, especially if you're looking at the quality of participants in this session today, you realize that Imo is blessed. But then, how do we harness the blessings of Imo State to be able to move Imo State forward and to be able to move the politics, the economics and the development of Imo State to the next level, especially taking into consideration the catastrophic impact of COVID? What do we do with our knowledge, with our capital, to move Imo State forward? Now, it is important to give a few backgrounds of Imo State, a little bit of it. According to Wikipedia, Imo State is bound in the east by River Niger and the Niger Delta to the west, Anambra to the north, Rivers and Bayelsa to the south. Imo State has a population of about 4.978 million and ranked 13th out of 36 states of the Federation. Imo State also has a total square mile of 2,140 square miles, making Imo State the 34th in land size in Nigeria. That is both an advantage and disadvantage. How do we play up with these advantages? How do we get our state ready to take care of things that need to be taken care of and move Imo State to the next step? With this program, I would like to invite the chairman of Imo State Economic Development Initiative, Professor Maurice Iwu, to give us his opening remarks. Shortly after that, we will get across to the governor of Imo State, Senator Uzodimma, to be able to give us his opening remarks, and then to Honorable Emeka Nwajuba, who is the chairman, who is the Honorable Minister of State for Minister of Education, and then we'll kick off with the first panel, which will be chaired by Chief Minister Njenje. You're welcome. Prof, this is your time to welcome us. Thank you.
Thank you, Emeka. Please, can I share my
the slide is running already.
I'd like to, on behalf of the Imo Economic Development Initiative, to welcome us all to this first webinar. The IEDI, we call ourselves the Imo Group, was started about 2017, essentially by our colleagues, our brothers in Lagos. They came to Imo State and decided that we shouldn't allow what was happening in that particular period to just go unchallenged. And they got us all together at a meeting. And it was during the meeting, perhaps the meeting was held in my house, that they chose me as the chairman. And then we since then registered the organization in DSC. And it's a CS registered body. And it's made up of Imo State indigenes, intellectuals, captains of industry, every other person who is interested in development of Imo State came on board. We have an office here in Owerri, modest place, but the whole idea that we want to be able to develop databases of various aspects of our life. The core thing we are doing is to be able to network in terms of working together to ensure peace, stability, and good governance in our state, based on state democratic ethos. And the kind of things that we have done that has helped us have been things that people ordinarily will wave aside. One example I want to give, for example, during this pandemic, most of the effort that led to success was actually by individuals. For example, we have a private laboratory in Imo State here that tests people against COVID-19. The whole idea of that laboratory being transitioned from a private lab to be able to help the state government and Imo people was initiated by Chief Leo Staneke, who called me. I never met the young man who owns the laboratory before, but he said that since we are not having our own testing done locally, that the best thing for us to do is to link up. We now approached the governor, and the governor was very enthusiastic about it. And then the governor then gave the directive that things should happen that way. And the man was there. He now used all the political contacts and everything to make sure that laboratory met the standard needed and it was certified. Why I gave this example, you can see how small things that individuals do can help us all. If not for that effort, a phone call by a member of the IEDI, we would have perhaps not had that issue done. We're also trying to focus all our efforts in the economy and championing prosperity in our state, trying to eliminate poverty. I know politics is everything that's happening in Nigeria, but everything is not politics. And we try as much as possible to remain focused. We have had a situation where the governor that was in 2017, we had a running battle with him, but it was all done in the good interest of Imo State. When Governor Emeka Ihedon has succeeded him, we also embraced him and worked with him to the best of our ability. As a matter of fact, some of the people who were in his cabinet came from our group. And then when this governor came on board, I seem as if we are just been lucky that even his deputy governor is a member of the group. So what we are doing is trying to minimize the political vagrancies of our time and concentrate on networking, working together to uplift our people. And what it also means that we should be able to see how we can give enough confidence level to the private sector so that they can be able to invest in our state. This particular webinar, I'm glad that you were able to log in. It's actually aimed at networking. We know that the COVID-19 has changed the world as the way we know it. And it is important that we prepare ourselves ahead of time so that when this thing is over, our people will not be worse off. During the pandemic or during this period, one of the humiliating things that happened was that we knew that it was not good for us to lift the ban or the embargo or the lockdown. But we had to, people were dying, people were suffering, people were crying, which means that a large percentage of our population are actually living from hand to mouth. One of the things that also happened, members of the IEDI came on board. They were helping people directly from there, wherever they were staying, to their villages. They were giving people palliative directly to their people. When we decided to also make face masks, one of us also coordinated it. We had people donating money from outside, and they will make this face mask and send direct to their own villages, not helping somebody. But the idea there that the aggregate donations came together and helped us develop our state. So we are begging you that please stay on board. This is the first webinar. There will be several. all these topics that we're having, each one of them is capable of being a webinar topic on its own. So what we are asking is that nobody has all the answers. Nobody know everything by himself. Even if we have all the money, if we don't have good ideas, the money will be wasted. So we are asking our members and people from our state to please bring your knowledge, bring your ideas, bring your money to the state. Our state is a peaceful state, luckily enough. Our state is in a very centrifugal position to be able to help the entire zone. Our state is also, luckily enough, also endowed with some minerals and some infrastructure that we can use to develop our place. So those people who are interested, please join us so that we can all help develop our state. That in a nutshell is what Imo Economic Development Initiative is all about. We have never had any government grants. We have financing. People are donating their time and money, and it has worked so far. And we think that it will work better even after this webinar. And all we are asking is that if you have the time and the resources, please think home. Your money will be saved, your time will be properly utilized, and we'll all join hands together to save ourselves. Again, thank you for joining us in this first webinar. Emeka, thanks a lot again for being the moderator for this program. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you for the very wonderful introduction, introducing our state and introducing IEDI on what you have been doing with the entire team. Thank you and God bless you. And we pray that you continue to do more. His Excellency, good afternoon again. This is your time. Your citizens, the panelists are all waiting to hear from you on the way forward. Just like my intro, Imo State is arguably the knowledge and education capital of Nigeria. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are ready to work and to invest in Imo State. We need to hear from you and from your government on the way forward. You're welcome, sir. Give us your remarks.
Thank you so much, Emeka. Let me start by greeting the Honorable Minister of State Education, the Chairman, Imo Economic Development Initiative, and members, and also the Chairman, Imo Economic Committee Post-COVID in Lagos, Chief Leo Stan Eke and his members, and all of us that are in this conference today. This conference by Imo Economic Development Initiative is timely and most cogent. I think the chairman, Professor Maurice Iwu, and the galaxy of Imo intellectuals, captains of industries, renowned entrepreneurs, I want to thank all of you for putting together this conference. Nothing can be more urgent than a thoughtful discourse on a post-COVID Imo economy. This conference offers an auspicious opportunity for stakeholders to confront the grim economic reality of our generation. It also avails us the space to sufficiently provoke ourselves into finding solutions to the problems. The task of saving our generation from the looming threat of economic stagnation and possible collapse is one that must be accomplished. COVID-19 has wreaked unthinkable havoc on the world. The world economy has practically collapsed. Right before us, gainful employments have continued to evaporate into the air. Healthcare architecture has been stretched to its width end and has almost caved in. Hunger looms as visible as the shining sun in summer. Food security has taken flight in the face of an increasing COVID-19 induced massive decline in productivity. Yes, every craft and ingenuity that kept global economy safe and secure appear to be descending into an abyss of uncertainty, and the world watches in bewilderment and helplessness. Our dear country and state, Imo, are not spared from this frightening economic gloom. If anything, we are worse hit, with ever tumbling proceeds from crude oil sales and national and state economy that are not just endangered, but clearly diminishing day by day. So herein lies the urgent challenge we face. Where do we go from here? And what do we do? With the Imo Economic Development Initiative, I see a light at the end of the dark tunnel. With this group of prominent sons and daughters of Imo State interested in the development of the state, I see hope in a hopeless situation. Led by the chairman, Professor Morrissey, it's inspiring to note that this group and this membership is made up of key stakeholders in Imo State, including captains of industry, eggheads from the academia, technocrats, globally renowned entrepreneurs, retired senior military and the paramilitary personalities, as well as other professionals of Imo origin. Even more confident boasting is the fact that the participants as today's session include the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Mr. Emeka Nwajoba, serial digital entrepreneur and chairman of Zynos Computers, Yostan Eke, public health specialist and senior health economist, Dr. Francis Uguje, renowned economist, banker, lawyer, and Harvard Braille scholar, Dr. Emeka Osuji, as well as serial entrepreneur and managing partner, Grand Central Chinenye Mba Uzuku, among many others. Let me therefore assure all of us that under my watch as the governor of our dear state, Imo State will leave no stone unturned in ensuring that we secure our state for a post-COVID resilient economy that will create and sustain employment for our people. My 3R vision of rehabilitation, reconstruction, and recovery is well positioned to achieve this goal with your cooperation. In this respect, I propose to reposition the state economy as a business-driven economy through the active participation of the private sector. We already have in place an Imo State Investment Agency, which will henceforth partner with your group to work out ways we can to create a sustainable employment for our people beyond COVID-19 era. The focus here should be to empower our people to thrive in small and medium-scale enterprises in both the artisan skills, trade, and agriculture. I believe by working with eminent Imo stakeholders like you, we can leverage on our available public and private funds for this purpose. Already we've brought into the Central Bank of Nigeria, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, an agricultural and trade loans for graduate skill acquisition scheme. About 10,000 Imo youths are already in the queue for the facility. However, with an active employable population of over 2 million people, a literacy level of over 75%, and an unemployment rate of over 24%, the figure I just mentioned above is still nothing to celebrate. I believe that a major task, or the major task for this conference, should also be on how to empower not less than 300,000 graduates from our states, particularly in different skills and self-employment opportunities, and create over 500,000 jobs. Therefore, this is the agenda I want to act for this conference. I believe that we can realize this through public-private partnership in sourcing for both public and private finance facilities to realize the objective. Furthermore, I need not emphasize the fact that a post-COVID self-sustaining economy cannot do without a vibrant education sector. This informs our emphasis on quality, functional education at all levels. It also informs the establishment of a second university, the University of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences for the state. We are determined to make the two state universities one of the best in the world. The cooperation in terms of funding and capacity building in these universities is also most needed. My esteemed Imo leaders, let me summarize the challenge I bring before you this way. First is for you to see the urgent need to create at least 500,000 employments in the next 3 years. This we can achieve by the 300,000 skills acquisition empowerment scheme earlier proposed. With such number of people empowered for self-employment, they will certainly employ others in the course of time. Also, with the agri loan to farmers and the more organized agri sector of over 100,000 jobs that will be created. With ADAPAM back to stream, the public water sector set for a big time turnaround, and other state-driven industry initiatives. The public sector is set to generate over 100,000 employments within the period in view. To achieve all this will require a synergy with the private sector and the public sector. Permit me therefore to propose the setting up of an Imo State Post-COVID Economic Development Agency, which will be made up of members of government and members of Imo Economic Development Initiative. If that is done, we'll have a platform to proselytize ideas, plan together, conceive all these ideas together, and implement policies that will boost not only the economy of Imo State, will bring good and quality life to our people. I will continue to be with you. Consider me as your partner in the course of doing whatever you think necessary that will bring life, stimulate our economy, and then create a jumbo harvest for the mutual benefit of both the private people and the public sector. May God bless all of us, and I want to wish you, as you continue to discuss, God's protection and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Senator Uzodimma. Thank you for your grand vision for Imo State. We will offer you our partnership. We'll accept your offer and offer you our partnership for the continuous development of Imo State. Your grand vision of what you want to do, the 3 R's for the state, we definitely will key into it with our chairman, Professor Iwu. We will offer you all the educational resources, all the investment resources, and the human capital resources that Imo State has in abundance. Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with your team to move it forward. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next panelist will be our own son, Honorable Juka, who is the Minister of State for Federal Ministry of Education. Just like I said in my intro, Imo State is almost known as the intellectual and educational capital of Nigeria. And the government of President Buhari offered and gave us the Minister of State. That's a perfect match. Honorable Minister, sir, knowing the background of Imo State and the demands of Imo citizens in terms of education and intellectual endowment and capital, it is your turn to address us, to let us know what the Federal Ministry of Education is doing nationally and specifically for Imo youths and the Imo education community. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, my revered Imo people, my good people of Imo State. First, let me thank and greet His Excellency, our Governor, and my brother, Senator Uzodimma Onwa Oyoko. And with my elder brother, Professor Morris Iwu, I would like to use this opportunity to also extend my greetings to Sadio Stan and Emeka Ibe, and all who have put this together. I am really delighted to be offered the opportunity to listen in and be guided by my co-patriots who have taken up this idea to furnish for the state an assemblage of ideas platform. My understanding of what is going on is we realize that Imo is full of intellectuals. Many of us over the years have seen bright minds come out from Imo State. Some of them are the brightest in the world. How to articulate all their views and make it, concretize it into something that is profitable and useful and then scalable is a unique challenge, considering that in the banking sector, I'm thinking Imo State probably has produced maybe more than any other state, more bank MDs from, you can think of executive directors in almost every bank, and yet is still dependent on every other person. We have industrialists of every type, but all the industries in Imo are practically closed. From the days of Ferdinand and Nagara to all those, Imo has had consistent people who have tried to develop it. And if you have a forum like this where we are challenged to pull resources and ideas together and make them workable, then that would be terrific. So I commend the thought process that has yielded this platform. And to make it even more auspicious is that COVID-19 has forced us into a webinar such that you do not need to travel a lot to be able to share with your brothers, because it would have been difficult at most times to convene some of these conferences. Some people may not come and some may not be able to attend or have the time. So this also is a challenge, but now has been turned into an opportunity. So I welcome the idea of being able to hear and be directed. We at the Ministry of Education understand that our mandate is to develop for the nation adequate manpower. We take everybody from cradle and problem to grade, because even when you're a professor at like Prof is still learning and teaching. So the Ministry of Education spans your lifetime and be able to afford you the opportunity to play. We sensed this opportunity while I was still at TED Fund when we decided that it was important to advance Imo State University a 3 billion naira grant, which I felt at the time was our due, but I wanted them to see what they could do with it. The governor has instituted a visitation panel to the university. I'm sure he will sort what they have been able to do there. For the polytechnic sector, we also instituted a 1 billion grant to them at the same time. Where they're not just peculiar or specific to Imo State, but we try to use our presence at the table at the time to make sure that Imo State got what we will consider a lion's share of what the funding facilities are. It is up to the people who use it to then determine how they grow. Imo State has a myriad of opportunities, but has to be situated within its own constraints. Imo is the smallest landlocked state because the 35th and 36th states both are littoral, and therefore its challenges are unique. And to identify its own opportunities and then be able to leverage those also very, very important. Imo is challenged because it sits at the tributary that enters the Niger Delta. Therefore, denudation and erosion are key factors. And I'm sure you've seen the Idato landscape as an example of what will happen or what is happening to us because we have refused to control how big men build their houses and how you must harvest water. And I will come back to the governor with how he will need to talk to Imo people to harvest water so that we don't lose the land itself before we start. But Imo has things that are unique to it. We're the best palm belt and sitting on top of one of the best vegetations that there is. And if we want to grow around the biodiesel industry, around palm plantations and what can be done with the palms. If you talk to Chinedu and the group from Malaysia with Charlie Ogu, they've done, these ideal people, they've done quite a lot of work from what I hear. You guys are doing a lot of it. Solar power energy, there's so many. But more importantly is if you look at the sector where we have headed to technology. We at the Ministry of Education, we just decided that it is important to step up science and technical education, and we have now recently sent for a new federal government college to be built in Olo, because there is one in federal government college in Owerri, and there's a federal government college in Okiwe, but we're going to go ahead and build a new science and technology college at Olo, and the governor has graciously granted us land already, and the ministry is one of the first to be built in the country at the moment, and the governor is doing everything he can to get us running at speed. There are so many opportunities that will happen and should happen, and if we all cooperate and be guided together, because like you pointed out, nobody, in spite of how much may be available to you, could and possibly will know everything. The opportunity to be a technological giant, to create a silver valley in Imo State, to become the Silicon Valley of Africa, is actually something that we are pre-positioned to do. With Leostan Eke leading some of the best brands. We just lost our sister, Mrs. who has CPN, and all those who in the field there, we have the brains. It's just to put some of our infrastructure together and use the opportunities we have right now in the Ministry of Education to drive that. We can become what we agreed that we want to become. But I think we should bring our thoughts together and focus them rightly. And what the governor has suggested, putting an investment group over us over this COVID period, sits well with everything that we think. And as you have offered to partner, I'm also going to offer to be at your service. In any way I'm pushed or directed, I am humbly at your service. I welcome all Igbo citizens and thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister for Education. Thank you so much for your offer of partnership. Most importantly, what you said, when you are at the table, you partake in decision-making at the table. When you were in ETF, you made your presence felt. The 3 billion naira for Imo State University and the 1 billion naira for the Polytechnic. That's fantastic. Congratulations and thank you very much for that. We also know that you can do a lot more. Because just like I said, Imo State is endowed with some of the best intellectuals and educationists. And everything is right now under your care. So we continue to pray. We are also guaranteeing you our 100% support and partnership, especially at the educational sector, to move Imo State forward. Thank you very much, and continue to do what you're doing. And Imo, and God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now, we are going to move straight into the sessions, the business sessions of today. So we have to introduce our panelists. They are all on board. The first speaker for the panelists is one of the best brands in Nigeria, if not in Africa, in the technology sector. He will give us an inspirational talk on how to survive in the pandemic, the way forward for our youth, the way forward for our business community, the way forward for our men, and the way forward for our women. And of course, how to interface with government and be able to, being able to move some of these agendas forward. I'd like to introduce Chief Leostan Eke, who is the founder and CEO of Zynox Group, which is a household name in Africa. So, Chief Leostan, please, the floor is yours. Thank you. You have about 15 minutes to interact with us.
Thank you very, very much, Emeka. Your Excellency, the Governor of the Imo State, Chief Senator Uzodimma, Your Excellency, our own brother, who is the Minister of Education, Emeka Majiba, Chief Emeka Majiba, and our own Chairman, Professor Maurice Iwu, and then all executive members and brothers and sisters all over the world as they continue to connect online, and our friends who want to invest in Imo State. I want to appreciate all of you. Mine is very simple. I just want to say that I appreciate God for bringing me from Imo State. And I think I'll tell people this. we are all committed to that state, and only a fool will abandon his state. I want to point out one thing before I go into the mainstream. If God has brought you from a place and you spend your time criticizing the place when you have access to suggest, I think you are debranding yourself. I want to plead with all of us who are online not to be negative, be very positive. Do the much you can. Sometimes you have bad government, sometimes you have good government. But we also need to add value to the state. This is a spiritual responsibility. You don't have an option. So I'm one person who supports every government in Imo State. I don't belong to any party. And I think why some of us make investment mistakes is that you can't be a businessman and be a politician. It's either you become a politician or you become a businessman. Okay, you can be a businessman and go into politics. So I like this platform. I'm committed to it. And I've been privileged to consult for other states on COVID and post-COVID-19 survival strategy. And we managed to put this together. So it's a privilege for me to speak to everyone online here. Now, a lot of people are talking about post-COVID, but those who live beyond the challenge, okay, will celebrate post-COVID. So what is critical right now is that how do we put food on the table? The governors have crises, the president has crisis, we all have crises in our families, but even though we pretend the government should look after us. But what are we contributing to survive this period? We don't know how long it's going to last. But we come from a state, every person agrees. The governor said, and His Excellency Emeka Nwajuba said, we are central to this economy. We have brilliant people, people with a lot of energy, okay, and people who are not too much noisemakers. Now, what I plead with you is see the state as yours. No matter how small, you don't need to be a rich man to contribute. Start from your village, from your family, your village, to your town and local government, and then come to the state. It all adds one or two. Now, let me look at what is central to survival today. Fortunately, we have the Minister of Education, educating our people. Now, education has become a common factor, but quality education is rare in Imo State. And I think this is the cheapest thing we can support the government to have quality people. That's the biggest investment you make in the world today. The 21st century, I said it many years ago, is a century of knowledge and trust. If you don't have the two, you survive in the short term. And if you people know, Igbos were the biggest traders, but most of them had no education. They had no exposure. So today they are competing with Chinese, with their standard. Okay, so how can you survive? Profit margin has fallen. So when you put Igbo rich people on the scale, you find out they don't have money. How many of them can lose 2 billion? I will not have heart attack. Now, but we now need to cheapest, for the first time, education is cheap. That we can create solid foundation, very cheap, to educate our people properly. University is giving today, you go to university, whether you study or not, they will give you a degree, or you know nothing. So I think we are privileged, and we get all the endorsement from the Ministry of Education, because Emeka has been very passionate about developing the state. And then we have a governor today who is in the right party to make things work. So we need to invest in education. And Your Excellency, what Imo State lacks today is a finishing school. There are universities, Futo, Imo State University, Naked, the Polytechnics, and all the rest of them. They all lack basic infrastructure to qualify, to produce quality graduates. And to produce quality graduate who has spent 6 months today, sorry, 4 years. We don't need more than 6 months. That's why I say finishing school. I just hired 7 Imo people. I think I'm the largest employer of qualified Imo citizens in this country. So I can tell you, I bring them from Imo, have lodged them in Lagos. It cost me 5 times the money. Okay. So I think
conference
so I think we can quickly intervene, and the governor give a phone call, and I'm a good supporter of this. If the government can provision 250 million and task each autonomous community, because I've done investment in every autonomous community, I have the statistics. $1,000 each. Any autonomous community that cannot produce $450,000 or 450,000 naira, which is $1,000. Okay, it would be very unfortunate to employ their people, to re-educate their people. And if they partner with Zynox Institute of Technology, that is certified by Microsoft, all of them. So you get a lot of things for free. We'll be having about 1 billion. Zynox Group might put 150 million. But we need to remove politics from it to make sure, first of all, we recruit from every community the best and train them over the next 1 year. I can assure you, I will help get them jobs. We create a digital job center. People need them, from accountant to religious studies to biology. I have a guy who did biology in the university. We trained him. We are paying him $1 million. The South African company just hired him. The South African company has no company here, and is paying him $5 million. And how did I know? Because he ran into foreign exchange problem, and he played with me in the last 2 months to pay the boy's salary. So for 1 million, he's earning 5 million a month. That family has survived for good. That community has survived. And the boy is 32 years of age. Now, so this is the kind of education I mean. You have the building. We can set it up in Imo State University, a hall, small generator, the IT equipment, but they are not just reading IT. It's a finishing school. Ethics of survival, communication skill, account for non-accountants. So when they go for interview, they are future CEOs. I've produced these people, they are earning, I've lost most of them to foreign countries, but it's one of those contributions. So we need to educate our people to get to this job. In fact, Vice President of Microsoft spoke to me yesterday. Okay? They created job for the season. So training people on major skills, customer services, critical jobs that are needed right now, digital marketing. So you can start your home and you're making money. We're paying you online. These courses are not more than 3 months. Okay? I'm doing them already, but I can't take the volume for Imo State. Now, you also, how do we employ our people? People are looking for qualified people. Immediately we give these people content. There's a way somebody is supposed to dress from Imo State. Imo people are decent people to go for an interview. So sometimes I breeze into Concord. The last time I was in Concord, I was interacting with about 75 of them. They have content, but they are very timid to carry your ID card. So some of this finishing school is 3 months to get a job. You're thinking about 500,000. We can push into the society 1 million because people are looking for them. Imo State has traffic on internet, telephoning. Okay, so it's a least headache for you. Now, I would tell every Imo person, you must sow a seed in Imo State. It's good to talk, it's good to expect, but we have to sow a seed. For those our brothers who are abroad, today you can see the difference with $500, $1,000 that you can use in lodging a hotel. But if you can sign on to educate 3 people on a finishing school, it's simple money. I will help them get jobs. I will employ them. I'm recruiting. Okay, fine. So, and I get my friends to employ them. Now, another thing I want to talk about is having faith and securing the people. Security is a major issue for investors. I mean, if you have the GPS of this country, Imo State is central. To go to Onitsha, to go to Abia, to go everywhere. I was trying to set up a medical center in Imo to do a supply chain for the pharmacists, because a lot of drugs sold on our side of the country are fake, and people are buying them and swallowing them. But at least to inject proper drug at the same price. Now, securing Imo State has a lot to do with security. No government can secure a state. And I'll give you a very good example. The governor of the state, of Lagos State, we pay security fee every year for those who choose to pay. My company gives them 50 million to 100 million. Now, if you don't inject this capital, how would the state no government can secure a state? I've given the same Imo State some pickups with security gadgets before, but it didn't go into the security system. They were given to the governor's brothers, which was a shame, and we all stopped. So I want to plead with all of us to have faith in the economy. If you don't have faith, it's like not having faith in God. Even when it solves your problem, you won't realize it has happened. And we should fight less. You can't believe in God and do other things. Then support and leverage on others. His Excellency knows. Holy Ghost College, I just put the biggest automation. It's not my money. I got it from government. I gave to Mbano and I gave to Olo. They have the latest, no university in Imo State has it. This college is have. I leverage on relationship with the government and I pleaded with them. And another one is going. It's coming again. And the governor is in a position, because what I'm saying, he knows. He's done it when he was a senator. He tried to influence some. Okay, we can go begging federal government in order to save the cost of development. So instead of building this infrastructure, we take what the government has built. It's cheaper for us, and the governor and his team can invest this money in some other resources. We are ready to help. It's very painful that we are in such a pain in the past. For 9 years, I've not stepped in my village park, because when I come to Imo State, I'm depressed for another 2-3 years, 2-3 days. And I'm a tech entrepreneur, so it upsets me, but there's nothing I can do. So I want to plead with every person from Imo State. We need to support the government. We need to give, no matter how small. I just calculated for $1,000 from every autonomous community. From every autonomous community, we have raised 1 billion. If the state want me to give them a bond to confirm that these people will properly train, these people will get a job, and they're not getting a job of 50,000. They're not getting a job of 60,000. They're getting jobs that they have the intellect, okay? They have the capacity to lead tomorrow, so that we can have security. It's easy to talk security when people are unemployed. You can't feel at home. But if you're also from Imo State, you agree with me that immediately you land at the airport, you feel happy. You're very excited to get into town. It's only when you get into town you start feeling depressed. Even if you're coming from Port Harcourt by road, you're excited you're going to Imo State. There's a spiritual attachment to what we have. We can't continue to say. I just give you an example, and I use myself as a testimony. I built in Imo State University, the first digital center 25 years ago. I equipped it. They abused it 3 months after. I built in Futo, the computer center in Futo, I built it about 17 years ago. I don't have my names on them for political reasons, because immediately I put my name, somebody would go and tell the governor, you still want to contest election. I built from Nekede, and I hire from there. Futo, I refurbished it end of last year. I go there to hire. So a lot of us can add huge value to employ our people. Not every person can be a politician. So I think I've done the little I can at the moment, but I want to plead with us. Let's do less talk. Let's do less fight. Okay, let's be positive minded. Okay, let's embrace growth. Let us embrace progress to the glory of God. Thank you very much. This is just what I want.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stan. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your service to the state and your service to the country. In a nutshell, incidentally, yesterday I spoke with someone regarding finishing school in the state. So that could be something that is trending. And I think that's a fact that people that finish from university and polytechnics need to be, cleaned up properly for digital enterprises in Imo State. And then, of course, your community participation in the digital economy of the state. And most importantly, the government can use you as a point of contact for all businessmen who are interested in partnering with the state. We will employ the state government to be able to have a proper PPP policy across all the sectors of governance or all the sectors of business in Imo State, and of course the security of the state for investment. I believe IEDI will be able to leverage on some of the things you have done to be able to partner with you, to be able to offer some policy advice to government to move this forward. Now, we need to move to the second speaker, who is Dr. Emeka Osiji. Dr. Osiji, your mic will be unmuted immediately. Chike, please unmute Dr. Suji, who will have his presentation. Dr. Suji is a former banker and a technocrat and a lecturer in Lagos Business Schools for Pan-African University. He will be exposing us to the world of small and medium enterprises and how to leverage on available funding in Imo State, or rather in Nigeria, to be able to expand the business of MSME in Imo State. Dr. Suji, please have 10 minutes for your presentation. Your time starts now.
The Executive Governor of Imo State, Senator Uzodimma, Honorable Minister, very revered Chairman of our group, IEDI, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, it is indeed a pleasure for me to share my thoughts on some of the issues that are brought in today, particularly on the SME sector. What I can say is that today, that we are in a situation where the whole world is facing a crisis. The whole world is facing a crisis. And it is such a situation that the world economy has been disequilibrated. It has lost its balance, and global recession is looking at us. At times like this, you know, two things happen, and they happen very quickly. Revenues fall and cash flows disappear. And this happens for all entities, big and small. Households and small and micro enterprises lose their livelihoods, and some actually die. And when that happens, jobs are lost. But timely public policy and private response, like what we have today, will actually help to kick in. When it does kick in, then there will be hope. So it is a pleasure to see that we are discussing on how to kick in something that will improve the present situation. Development banks, that is banks like Bank of Industry, the Central Bank, and Bank of Agriculture, they are expected to kick in to support. And all over the world, they have begun to kick in. So they go where private funds and financiers do not go. So what we need to do immediately is to ensure that two critical things happen. That is to say, we return our businesses into productivity, okay? That is business continuity. A lot of businesses have been destabilized, they've lost their capital, some have lost their staff. They need to be brought back to the path of continuity. That requires financing and help them to manage disaster. And then we also need to restore cash flows. Cash flows are central to economic development. The cash flows are the things that make people spend money. If people don't spend money in the economy, there is no GDP. And today, all over the world, it is recognized that the small and medium enterprises hold over 2/3 of the jobs in the world. And as a matter of fact, contribute up half the GDP of the rest of the world. And that is not different from our own state, Imo. We are also supposed to be part of a global economy, and that is where it is important that we participate in what is happening. So we need to go, we need to go peacefully and prosper in the sense that we need to support our small and medium enterprises. Imo State economy is a micro enterprise economy, okay, and by definition, I'm talking about companies that employ less than 10 staff and have like about 5 million of assets, okay. As a matter of fact, that's the dominant nature of the Nigerian economy. In the whole of the 41 and more enterprises in Nigeria, about 99% of them are micro enterprises. So the economy depends on small people, okay? But they have a disability. These are people that have no bankable assets. Even when they have assets, they don't have right titles to them. Okay, there's no legal framework to operate. It's simply a hand-to-mouth economy. So when things like this happen, as we experienced during the Ebola crisis, we found that it is the MSMEs that suffer most. They lose their capital, they lose their cash flows, and reviving them is therefore essentially critical. How do we do it? We do this by putting money back into the hands of the small people. When I mean small people, I mean people that run businesses within 5 million, within 10 million, as classified as small enterprises.
And that's the nature of the Nigerian economy, which is basically informal. Our people are working in the villages, they have no facilities. This is the time individuals and governments that mean well will come to do. Okay? And it should be by a deliberate public policy. Government may not have all the funds, and that is why people like our group have come together to support government. And I'm very glad His Excellency mentioned small and medium enterprises when he spoke. So it is important that we understand what is happening in public banks, like Bank of Industry, Central Bank, what they are doing. They are doing a lot already. There are some facilities that it is of my interest today to find out and ask if Imo people are really participating. For instance, there is the MSME, which is a 220 billion fund, which includes grants and capacity building monies that will be given through participating banks at very low interest. There is SMAIS, which is a fund that has been created by the Bankers Committee in order to support business people that are interested in having equity to increase their capital and raise their funds. Just as it is, also we have Young Entrepreneurs Development Fund. This is to support startup businesses by young people. Okay, young people who are particularly in the agricultural value chain and such areas. The question to ask is, are our people participating? When COVID happened, the government through the central bank launched a fund we call the COVID Fund, 50 billion. That fund actually has been disbursed up to 49 billion. It is important to ask how many people from Imo State that are into MSMEs are participating. There is also a refinancing and rediscounting facility, which the government has introduced in order to help small and medium enterprises to deal with their bank loans. Because when a disaster like this happens, the first thing that crystallizes is your debt, and you have no cash flow to pay. There is a guaranteed offtake scheme which the federal government uses to buy up products from agricultural production or whatever the people produce locally. These funds are there, and they will not walk up to your kitchen to meet you. You will need to have people to talk to you. If you do not understand, you may need consultants to guide you. Survival fund also exists, which the which the federal government is using these opportunities to introduce to individual companies that have a way to show that they were affected by COVID. What that fund does is to help you to take part of your salaries and wages. So it is alive, it is available, and it is being operated. Then there's the big one, the Anchor Borrowers Scheme, okay, which is part of the MSME fund. I had over 43 billion of it has already been disbursed, okay? Over 43 billion of it has already been disbursed as at March. And it is important to ask how many of our people are participating in this, okay? It is important to know that these funds are spread through participating banks. And who are the participating banks? They are the deposit money banks, that's the regular banks. They are the development banks like Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, and more particularly, the microfinance banks. The microfinance banks are very critical in the development of Nigeria. I had the privilege of, when I was advising in the Ministry of Finance, when we created the microfinance system that eventually metamorphosed through community banks. So we need to have our own microfinance bank. I think the Imo State has a microfinance institution because actually, no matter how the big banks try, they can never help small people. It is not in their DNA. I was a banker for 25 years and I did my time fully. But we may like small businesses, but definitely we cannot help them. So the microfinance institution that is properly organized, structured, and run will help the state. Because not only do they do that, they help them to organize, okay? They help them to establish their processes, and they help them to acquire capacity, because that's the role of microfinance institutions. So we need to revamp, grow, develop such facilities if we need to get to our people. Businesses must register if you want to participate in these opportunities that exist. You do not carry on a business that is not registered. I know not all businesses can be registered, like the very little women selling things in the market, selling vegetables. Those are the people, the microfinance institutions, with parents, like parenting, acting like a mother or a father to help them. But other institutions need to register, because if you register, you will be able to qualify to participate. They will ask you for your BVN number because now there is financial inclusion that is critical. They can also ask you for tax identification number. If you don't have this, it will be difficult for you to participate. I'd like to remind our people there's something called collateral registry now. It is no longer an excuse that you don't have collateral to borrow money. No, there is what we call collateral registry, which allows small people, permit me to use that word, small business people, to use their assets, which we call chattels, okay? Their air conditioning, their tables, their things that are in the room, to register to borrow money. And this is very clear. And microfinance institutions are encouraged to do it. At least we can do it starting with the people of our state. The time when microfinance institutions go about lending money to big businesses is gone. It will not help any state. So we need to find out how can our people benefit from the collateral registry and the microfinance institution. It is critical. The bank can fill the streets of Owerri. You even have where you call Bank Street or Bank Avenue. Those banks are therefore at best medium enterprise, okay? Because when we were in banking, when small businesses come, of course, there are certain things we ask them. Do you have your feasibility report? Oh yes, they say we know you, we've been doing it. The banker will laugh. They have things that require you to document, which is not the natural way that small and medium enterprises go. So it behooves us as a state to help organize our people and reduce poverty and create more jobs. Okay, so strategy for creating jobs. Okay, of course it will be financial and also infrastructure related. All right, I want to say that governments do not create jobs. Anybody challenging government to go and create jobs, that is a misnomer. It's an anomaly. What governments do is to prepare the environment and make it conducive for investment capital to come. So you can call that job creation, but provided you understand that it is not about government setting up a shop. Government can set up shop, set up airlines, but the creation of the job in the quantum that is important is created by enabling environment. Once that happens, it will be okay. By 2035, Africa is projected to have the largest labor force in the world. Now technology is accelerating change and things are happening left, right, and center. Many jobs, as Brother Leostan mentioned, are going to go away. They're going to go digital. How are we preparing? So the way of work of tomorrow is going to change. Our people changing. We cannot sit down and blame our people. We need to guide them. And I'm excited at the ideas that Chief Leostan has mentioned. These are things the private sector can key into in order to grow the state, because it's our state. There's no running away from it. So what kind of capacity are we building? And it also came out in the comments of Chief Leostan talking about a finishing school. We need to have standard. Hotel is everywhere in Owerri, but which one of them is really a hotel? You get into a hotel, you call for a hangar. Meanwhile, the room was clean for you to enter. Then you look at the towel, there's no floor towel, meanwhile there's supposed to be one. Because there is no standard. I think Imo State, with all the myriads of hotels in Owerri, we can set the standard for hotel management. We create an institution, put our children there, train them, develop them, other people will come and hire them. You can't be sitting at the foot and guessing at the car. We can get this thing done. They are doable. And I am very, very excited. Even our artisans, for those of you who have been building properties, okay, whether it's in Lagos or in the East, you import Cotonou people. You take Cotonou people to come to work, to come and do your POP. I have personal experiences that are very dastardly, and they are not for this. But the point to do is that we need to get our people working. You get a plumber who doesn't know how the water runs. What is a plumber? He finishes, you go to bathroom, water doesn't come out. It's not their fault. We need to set standards and help them to grow in those areas. So the hospitality hall that God has given to us, we can convert it to a growth sector in Imo State. And it won't happen if we don't set standards. It won't happen when people come into a hotel, it's smelling, it's not clean, and stuff like that. So further on jobs, I want to list some areas that are possible that people can quickly get into and create jobs for people. There are call centers, or what they call customer service centers. This is in high demand. We have, garment industries that we can create. Our people are already tell us, okay, whether they are in Abia, in Abia State, so we can harvest them, put them together, give them further training, give them further equipment, and begin to make clothes. Sooner or later, people won't be able to afford clothes coming from Thailand and China. Let us begin now to fit into those positions. And I believe the executive governor, from his comments, he is going to lead us, and we're going to support him every way to get to this. Look at something coding centers, which Chief Stan is a master in those areas. These are gaping opportunities that can be developed if our people begin to feel the responsibility of helping their state. Individual success, most of you are very successful. But where are you going to go with it? It's everybody. In fact, the COVID has given you an example. Some people have spent all their money buying rice for their maternal homes and their villages. Even small people are buying rice because the people are not on good foundation. So we need to create things, okay? Security, okay? I mentioned hospitality, okay? And in order to close, I want to say that these are things that take time. They require environment from government. They require support. Government does not necessarily have to shell out all the money. What entrepreneurs require is good, conscience from government, good encouragement, okay, and able to listen to them and share opportunities. And I have no doubt whatsoever that Senator Uzodimma, whom I know very well, is ready to lead Imo State to a change. And on that basis, ladies and gentlemen, shall I ask you to begin to clap?
Thank you very much, Dr. Sudi.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
We'll take some questions and answers now.
Yes, we're going to do a Q&A after this roundup. So thank you for the panelists. We have questions and answers. My co-moderator, Dr. Ebere Njoku, can look at the question and answers and redirect those questions and answers to the panelists. While we are trying to gather the questions, I'd like to tell Dr. Sudi that your presentation speaks to the heart of the matter. Now, what we have to do as IEDI is to help the governor and the government of Imo State provide an implementation plan and program, because everybody knows the problems. So, Your Excellency, our team with the group that you mentioned, the Imo investment team, will come together and work and give you an implementation plan. It's not enough to talk. After talking, we'll give you a policy guidelines. Even on this panel, we have people from NIPC, Nigerian Investment Promotion Council, that can help in terms of guidance. They've done it in so many states of Nigeria. It's an agency of the federal government of Nigeria. I can see them here on the panel. So they will also talk to us how the federal government can intervene in terms of policy guidance and directions for Imo State. They're very willing and available, and they're on this team. So our co-moderator will moderate the question and answers and pass them to the relevant panelists who have already spoken, so that we can give us some insight. Yes, Excellency.
I don't know whether I can just thank you and then take permission for. I'm going into a meeting with World Bank delegation that came from New Map, Erosion Control Committee of the World Bank. I just want to thank all of you for the commitment and time you brought to bear in this arrangement, and the commitment you've shown in trying to help. Imo State is a state blessed by God, like all of us have known. Although the absence of data has not helped some of us who came to preside over the affairs of the state we're almost starting from all over. So what I think is, from the point of concept, design and engineering, I want to carry this group along so that collectively we can take the credit or share the blame. And I want to assure you on my side that whatever is expected of me to do, I will gladly do to ensure that prosperity will reign in the state. There's no how one man can do it alone. It is a state given to all of us. We must work together. And I will be ready, willing to ensure that the necessary encouragement that you will expect to make you function at your best will be there for you, if by the grace of God. So let me run, and if anything is needed of me, please, Morrissey, who is there, yourself is there, Leostan, we will talk more, because I think part of the things you've said today is some of the low-hanging fruits we are looking for. We can quickly cash in and activate. So rest assured that I'm a partner that is willing to yield at any given time. Thank you.
Your Excellency, before you leave, I would like to let you know that on this platform today, the representative of the World Health Organization is going to talk about the program that will be launched in the whole of Africa, starting from Imo State. He's going to mention that to the board. You get the report later.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
So, Dr. Njoku, can you take us, please, through the Q&A? We have about 47 questions. So you know what to do. Batch the questions.
Yeah, let's go through them and curate them. As the governor is leaving us in a minute, I'd like to start with the Honorable Minister of State for Health. And then,
education.
Education, sorry about that, education. Yes. There are quite a number of questions for you. And the first one is from Amanda Sofo. She's saying that, how does your ministry intend to keep people accountable to the funds you want to allocate for education? Because you've said so far that it depends on the people that the funding is given to handle and develop the state in education. So how will your ministry plan to and continue to keep these people accountable? That's the first question for the Honorable Minister of State for Education. Somebody else has said that we already have a lot of institutions already. Then why is there a need, or is there really a need to establish more of them? Shouldn't we spend our resources on equipping and upgrading the infrastructure of the ones that are existing? That's also for the Honorable Minister of Education. And while you get ready to those answers, I'd like to direct my question again to Professor Maurice Iwo. And this question is about the healthcare system in the States. He's saying that how is the state in particular and the country in general ensuring that there is affordable and sustainable electricity to enhance digital education and business? So that's for Chief Leostan AK, because he has talked about digital economy and how that can help, empower the youth. And if in fact the finishing school, that would be a driving force. So she's asking them today, saying that how can we make sure they have sustainable electricity to be able to access the internet or the data they require for the finishing school? So that is for Chief Leostan AK.
Let them take the answers while we wait.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, fellow Imo citizens and panelists and all participants. The two questions are indeed a bit correlated. The way the ministry functions is that you get an opportunity, like we did at the time, to do what we call special interventions. And you look at institutions that have some capacity to use the funds, and then you allocate it to them. And that's what we did in respect of those two institutions. We're not then trying to just keep building more things. Some of the funds are directed at other providing institutions with capacity, because Nekede and Imo State University already built institutions to some extent, and some of the funds we gave them were to help them enhance what the infrastructure in those schools already had. We also did a little bit more, and I didn't want to go into a lot of the details of what we did, because that's not essentially the focus of this webinar, but there's a lot more around it, because I also extended another 3 billion to APSU for the year 2018 and 2019. We've done quite a few around those places, but we're targeting the second question, which is to continuously equip these places and then provide for places where there are gaps in new technology. There's something that is already going on in Imo State now, which may not necessarily be something that is very known yet until it finishes we're still at the hatching stage, which speaks to almost what Chief Leostan has elaborated on, which is like a finishing school. We're trying to get the National Open University to set up a zonal headquarter in Okigwe. The buildings there are in advanced stage. For the past 2 years, they've put in almost another 2.5 billion into the site. They are going to continue that investment as we go ahead. But I'm not sure whether it's right for me to announce that yet, but it speaks to having a technology, because we are going to also bring the Ministry of Communications, the National Communications Commission, because broadband penetration and volume and speed is also essential when you're looking at what the future holds. So we think that Imo State should be part of the focus, but this is not something yet at the top. I agree with you that we should just deepen capacity even amongst the little we already have, but we are going to keep making the effort to build the things that are required to make sure that infrastructure, equipping it, and developing capacity to run it amongst our people and within the academia is a sustain. We are looking at that. We have that in our focus, but like I said, I prefer for things to come to fruition before we put them on the public domain.
Thank you very much for answering that question. So you said the two questions were very similar, and you've answered both of them more or less. Right. Okay, I have a question for Chief Leosanike, because you spoke about inspiration at the beginning. So this question is from Uloma Omano, and she's saying that she's interested in our tomorrow. The social system, and more specifically, the moral compass, especially in our youth. Current get rich quick and by all means understanding unfortunately defies the socio-economic drive. We must arrest this. Our young girls must look beyond prostitution, and our young men must look beyond kidnapping, etc. We have ideas, but how committed can we be to changing this narrative by creating sustainable hope? It starts from our mindset. How can we change our thinking and get the young people who constitute the bulk of our population to get out of this mindset and to be able to trust the system that there indeed is hope? Chief Senator, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's very simple. I mean, frankly, the government cannot do what the parents are supposed to do. Okay, I talked about foundation. The person who didn't go to primary school, secondary school, and by age is admitted into a university has some deficiency. It's exactly today 95% of the rich people who are intimidating others in this country didn't have the privilege of using cutlery at a young age. A lot of them didn't see televisions until they were 25. It wasn't their making, there was no telephone. Now, today's kids have a digital switchover, let me call it that way. But parents must bring up their children responsibly. And this is why I thought the finishing school would help. The university system today does not help. Unfortunately, it's not the cause of the Minister of Education. A lot of people are floating universities without accommodation. A child who passed through a boarding school, okay, and a child who lived in 20 of them in one room cannot have the same habit without proper toilet system. Okay, fine. So this is what I call housekeeping. If you are in a polished environment, you don't need to be a rich person. That's why people like in Oxford, Harvard, there's nothing different, that they put you through a system that you progress. But they take the money from the rich people and give to the children of the poor who are very brilliant. These are the guys you hear their name globally, who emerge as CEOs. Okay? And they brand the institution. So the government has the medium to educate people, to create awareness that parents must do their job. Okay? Now, a lot of people are at home. What are your kids doing? Are they playing around? Remember, some other kids are learning how to play piano. Okay? Some of the girls should be taught how to cook. I know how to cook. I iron my dress. No person has ironed my dress. Okay? I iron it till today. I wash my hanky. I know how to cook. I drive myself most times. So these are things we cultivated, but the school system then and the principles of the lecturers, 50–70% of lecturers today are politicians. Do they bring the right culture? What parents couldn't do to intervene for them?
Yes.
Okay. Now, so morality has to do with families. Because if your child attends a bad school, the first time when he or she comes back, you know if that school is good or bad. A lady who cannot make bed, who cannot cook, who is not decent, the government cannot change it. The employer cannot change it. They will not hire him. Okay, so we have minimum qualifications. So what the finishing school helps to do is that as a standard, you have to be digitally literate. This deficiency I find in Imo State. I interviewed them. They have a master's degree. They even have a Tokumbo car. Their parents have 3 or 4. But the common denominator of an IT to create awareness, to understand the global community, they don't have. So do I have to now start training you? In most organizations, the first day you resume, you have to set the report. I just sacked, I'm not supposed to say this, but there's a very intelligent lawyer I just had to disengage. And it's from Imo State. And I was positioning to be the group head, deputy group head. But unfortunately, he has to handwrite and give to a secretary to type. He corrects in 21st century for a digital company. It's impossible. So there's no secret. The management has no secret because he passes the information to a secretary who will type. Okay, so what I'm basically saying is parents must do their job. When a child is irresponsible wearing earring, a young boy wearing earring, okay, the mindset has changed. Successful people are humble people. If you have a mindset, okay, that they are too much, you can't be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. On that note, I'd like to direct another question to Dr. Meko Suji, and this is from Obina Uboji. He's saying that he's listening from Trinidad and Tobago, and he's very impressed and happy with your speech. Please add to your presentation how we can enlighten the private sector businesses on how to access government grants and soft loans post-COVID-19. So he wants us to create some enlightenment and many offices around the state to help people fill necessary forms and submit them to the offices so that they can be assessed on their qualifications and eligibility to access some loans for their businesses.
Great. Can I go ahead?
Yeah, I think this answer is an answer that can be given immediately after, because it's a very important question. How do we relate to people so that we can move on?
All right. So should we go to the next speaker then, Emeka?
Yes, let me introduce Dr. Francis Njenje. This session is under healthcare investment and business in Imo State, and I think some of the questions are also related to healthcare. So Francis can be able to do some interventions alongside. Immediately after that will be Professor Ibu, also on healthcare. Dr. Francis trained specialization in healthcare finance. Dr. Francis was a senior health economist with the Nigerian Federal Ministry of Health and currently works with World Health Organization also as a senior health economist. He is a local son of Imo State and he's been intervening in the healthcare business and systems in Imo State. So Dr. Francis, you have 10 minutes to give us your intervention and your speech. You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Emeka. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Imo State, distinguished Senator Uzodimma, the Honorable Minister of State for Health, Chief Emeka Wajuba, Professor Maurice Iwu, the Chair of IDI, other panelists, my brothers and sisters from Imo State, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Very quickly, I'm going to speak with you this morning about investment in health. And I hope my slide is up right now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so specifically, I will be speaking to Imo State post-COVID-19 recovery and growth, huge opportunity in social health insurance. You are aware, and everyone in the world would say health is wealth. And this is seen in Southeast Asia, in many countries of the world where health has been prioritized, and infant mortality and maternal mortality rates have been reduced. It has been seen to stimulate economic growth in terms of GNI per capita. And this has been seen in China, South Korea, Malaysia, and Thailand. But we know, as it is today, that COVID-19 has caused key disruption in the Nigerian health sector and indeed our economy. And these are key timelines in the COVID-19 pandemic in the whole world, culminating in Nigeria recording over 600 new confirmed cases yesterday, 17 July. And as at today, we have over 35,454 total cases with over 772 deaths. In Imo State particularly, we have 436 confirmed cases, and about, again, 9 of them have died. So indeed, it is a very big issue in the whole world, in Nigeria and Imo State. But it has also caused significant shift in access to essential health services. And I take some of them very quickly. This data is from the Federal Ministry of Health. So reduction in immunization coverage. So for fully immunized children under 1 year, we harvested data for 2019 and 2020. So you will see from the national picture that it has actually reduced completely. The next is Imo, and I have compared Imo with some other states like Lagos, Delta State, and Anambra State, and you see that there are significant reductions in immunization coverage in all of these states. Again, I also brought this data from antenatal care. These are primary health care, essential primary health care services. Find that there are significant reduction from the national, again in Imo State, and in those 3 states that I decided to compare with. And the thought I wanted to bring out is outpatient attendance. What this means is that our people are no more accessing health services the way they should. So for outpatient services to be reduced this much, again, that shows us what COVID-19 has done in the health sector. But we know that health system strengthening holds the key to achieving universal health coverage. Imo is yet to be on track, even pre-COVID-19. And I'll show you a few slides. And this is coverage on health insurance. This is a household survey we conducted in Imo State months ago to be reduced this much. Again, that shows us what COVID-19 has done. Health insurance in Imo State is just 1.7% of the population. Imo has a population of over 5.6 million. And then again, because that coverage on health insurance is very, very abysmally low, there is very high resultant out-of-pocket expenditure on health at 92%. The standard is not supposed to be more than 40%. It's actually 30%, 30 to 40%. But in Imo State, 92% of our population access health services out of pocket. So you can see that health is predominantly financed by households out of pocket. And again, you can see in both outpatient and inpatient services. So outpatient is 92%, while inpatient is also 92%. And then over 68% of Imo households have catastrophic spending. What this means is the number of persons, the percentage of the population that fall into poverty each time they are sick and access health care. The bad news is that most of them don't even get to access health care because they do not have the means. At 68.6% of people in Imo State falling into poverty when they access health care, this is very unacceptable. And I dare say that this is the highest in the whole country. This is not the kind of data I am proud of as a citizen of Imo State, but unfortunately I produced it, and this is, they say data does not lie. So we need to do something very critically, and I'm very happy that Executive Governor and team have promised that they are working on getting this. And will you also be proud to see a primary healthcare center in Imo State like this? I visited one quite recently, just before the lockdown, and this is what you will see within a primary healthcare center where women deliver, where immunization is given to our children. This is not befitting of our state, and that is not what we want to see moving forward. But the good news is that Imo can build back faster and better, and we can do this through efficient and adaptive investment in health through health insurance. But if I have to illustrate very quickly how health insurance works, this is a situation where there is no insurance. This is Imo State as of today, where everybody is on his or her own. But we know that you can start some form of contribution. So the kind of things that happen in Akawo or those kind of schemes. So you get some people in various areas congregate and contribute, but this is also not sustainable. What is sustainable is social health insurance, where we have everything together, and this is the true Onyala one there that our Igbos, especially Nimai, Ejmarai. So health insurance is in our DNA. We are already doing that, and we need to continue. The extent to which when you are sick, you go to the health facility, you don't need to pay anything, because either you have paid or someone has paid for you if you are not able to pay. So you access health services, and then you go home and smile and then live longer. But I'm going to tell you that Imo is not starting from the scratch. So the Imo State Health Insurance Agency was established in 2018 with the support from the World Health Organization, with a whole lot of groundwork that was done, a lot of assessments that were done to put it on a very strong pedestal. And this is in place as of today. We need to just turn the nerve and make it functional for the good of our people. And just like my fellow panelists have mentioned, it is not just government that will do this. Again, a lot of us are already doing this in our various ways, in very small ways, but it can be more sustainable. This was an initiative from my family foundation, Felix and Agnes Ukwije Foundation, that has adopted over 122 persons from Amachara as our community. And they are already accessing services. You can see this very, very cheerful and happy woman here displaying her card that was given to her by the Imo State Health Insurance Agency. They accredited the health facility in my community, and as of today, as we speak, these people are accessing health care without having to pay out of pocket. And this is just at 12,000 naira per person. This is very cheap. And again, for me, it is good cost saving for some of us who bear a lot of burden from our community members, from our family members and relatives that you need to pay very hugely on. 12,000 naira for 1 year for one person is good savings for anyone who even understands business. But we have even made it very easier with support from the WHO, with funding from the European Union. So we are starting an innovation that will be the first in Africa, just like Emeka had mentioned, and it's starting from Imo State. So there is the Imo State mobile health insurance that seeks to bring health insurance the closest to our people, even those living in the rural areas. This is in the works right now, and hopefully very soon the executive governor will have to launch this so that people will have access to it. But it has 2 or 3 barrels. So the first barrel is it brings it close to people. Like anybody who can use mobile phone will be able to register seamlessly, hassle-free, on health insurance and even pay through the mobile phone. And the second is that it also brings it closer to those who would wish to adopt but are not close. For instance, if you are staying in the United States, in the UK, in Australia, in China, and you want to adopt people from your communities, you just need to click the buttons to do this, and you pay from there. And the Imo State Health Insurance scheme is credited, and then they start the needful. This is an unprecedented innovation that we are starting in Imo State, and I know everyone will have to key into it. But again, I have to say, lastly, that this innovation will also create additional jobs. One of the ways you can pay is using health insurance vouchers. And these vouchers will have to be sold by people living in the rural areas. The same way you sell vouchers for mobile phones. This is the way this can create jobs. And I'm going to show you in the ensuing slides how much jobs this can create in our economy. And I align completely with the vision, the 3 R's vision of the executive governor, especially in the creation of the 500,000 jobs. But I will show you that even this initiative in health insurance will create much more jobs than the executive governor has planned. But another good news is that over 75.4% of our people are even willing to engage in insurance, and that the disease burden is not very the things that are out of the way. They have the normal ailments that you see, malaria mainly, which is over 50% of all that we have here, typhoid fever and other infections. So why should Imo prioritize insurance for investment during and post-COVID-19 outbreak? I'll show you a few slides. And we try to do an investment case for health after running a fiscal space analysis. So we know Imo does not have money, but Imo can generate much more money from health than we have thought. Unfortunately, when my brother Emeka spoke about areas where we can stimulate the economy, he did not mention health. But I can show you in these few slides that Imo holds the promise to stimulate more domestic funding into our economy in Imo State. And we control for increased insurance as a share of the total health expenditure from 1.7 now to 51.4 in 2030. And then, of course, increase in donor funding, which is quite insignificant. An increased share of government schemes of the total health expenditure from 7 today to 8.6 by 2030. And most importantly, reduction in out-of-pocket expenditure from 92.3 today to 40% by 2030. And this is what you will find. So in this slide, and for me, this is the most important slide I'm going to show today. This slide shows us the gains, the returns on investment in both health indices, health state, and then in the economy. And I don't want to talk more about the health state because it will be a given that if you invest this much, you are going to improve the health state. I'm going to be talking about the economy because that's the remit of our discussion today, that in real GDP in billions, if we continue the way we are in 2030, we can only change, or we can only increase the economy by 5.9 billion in 2030. But if we invest in health insurance, we are going to stimulate the economy and generate over 21 billion. Total employment and job creation. Again, if we continue the way we are today in 2030, we can only increase job creation by 1.5 billion. But again, if we invest successfully in health insurance, we are going to be stimulating over 5.5 million jobs, which is much more than we are talking about today. And we can interrogate this and go further in the discussions later on. But again, the investment in health insurance does not only give us those goodies in terms of the economy and GDP growth, but again, it gives good promise on the recovery of essential primary healthcare services. And I give examples. That was why I was deliberate in choosing these states, these 3 states, to compare with Imo State and the national. So what you are going to be seeing in these slides, for those who are seeing it, is that even though all the states had a drop on essential health services during this COVID-19, you can see that there is early recovery in states like Lagos, states like Delta, and states like Anambra. These are states that have started even baby steps. I wouldn't even say that they have done so much in health insurance, but the 3 of them have one thing in common. They have started baby steps in providing essential health services that they invested in health insurance. The next, and I'm going to be closing very shortly. So the next is on the same antenatal care visit. If you also see the 3 states, they are consistent. When you compare that with Imo, you will see that Imo is lagging behind. So in essential antenatal care, the 3 states are also showing signs of very early recovery. And in fact, Delta didn't even have much issues and much drop on antenatal visits, because it is the most advanced in health insurance in the whole country. And if you look at outpatient attendance, in fact, you see Delta again soaring very high. Delta didn't even drop at all. In fact, this for me is the best slide I'm showing you today in terms of essential PHC services. Delta did not drop at all because it has a functional health insurance scheme. So what are we talking about here? We are taking away a few things. Number one, that the future looks very bright for Imo State, even though COVID-19 is devastating the country, but it provides a rare opportunity to do things differently. And we can turn everything around. These challenges, we can turn them around for good opportunities for economic growth. In terms of prioritizing state ownership of emergency response, including surveillance and early diagnosis, and increasing the health workforce in terms of well-trained and motivated health workforce. Our health personnel always go on strike because they are not well paid. But we can do better and bring them closer to development. And of course, a clear case for strong public-private partnership has been mentioned by other panelists here, because we know government cannot do this alone, and even the private sector cannot do it alone. It's only a strong partnership by both that can make it happen. And we suggest that health insurance can bring all of these things together and ensure that we prevent poverty and increase economic growth. This is my very, very final slides. The functional Imo State Health Insurance Scheme guarantees post-COVID-19 multiplier effect on the economy through increase in health-specific resources. And here, we are looking at contributions from those who can pay. And this is, like I said earlier, only 12,000 Naira for a whole year to access health services when you need it, without having to break the bank. So we know today that a lot of people sell lands to be able to afford health services. This cannot happen again if we continue. And the worst thing that happens is, even when they are sick, they don't go, but they only go because they don't have money. They only go when it becomes worse, and a lot of them die. And when they die, they sell land again to be buried. So the second is increase in health budget and releases to reflect Abuja declaration of not less than 15% of the budget of the state to health. And again, releasing the equity fund for health insurance as we have in the health insurance, Imo State health insurance law, of not less than 1% of the consolidated revenue fund. But again, there is another opportunity in the basic healthcare provision fund of the federal government, which the state would also benefit from. And then, of course, from development assistance, just like WHO is bringing to the fore, if we position ourselves well, the development partners will come. So WHO is already here and partnering with the state to move to the next level. And efficiency gains through strategic purchasing of health services is strengthening primary health care and reducing the cost and waste that we have, and of course creating healthy competition. We know that we have recommended that Imo should open their health village, because we know that Imo is the next health tourism hub of the whole of Nigeria. We have that potential and we can make it happen. And we know that the state government will listen kindly to this and make it happen. And of course, in the improved macroeconomic conditions, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of GDP growth and collateral, intersectoral leverage and linkages, in terms of resource mobilization for the other sectors, and stimulating local production, especially in health commodities, including drugs. We can produce drugs in Imo State, and then PPEs as is needed, even this time of COVID-19. On a very final note, we do not expect that families should have to choose between paying for health care and paying for the other things they need, just like education or food. So we think that it will be very responsible for us as individuals and collectively as government to stimulate these investments in health so that our people will have good respite. My disclaimer here is that the issues I have raised here are my own thoughts, and the recommendations I made are based on my experts' views. It doesn't in any way reflect the official views of the World Health Organization that I work for. And all the data I have used have been appropriately acknowledged.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Francis. Thank you for your incisive intervention, and thank you for the work you're doing for Nigeria, and thank you for the work you're doing for the state. Just like our Honorable Minister of State for Education said, when you are at the table, you have to take care of it. You know you are at the table at the WHO where some of these decisions are made, and you're helping to make these decisions, and that's why Imo State has been chosen as one of the first states to benefit from the medical health insurance. I'd like to reiterate the fact, based on what the governor said and what our chairman said, that we will be happy and available to be able to work with you and the WHO to ensure that all these recommendations come to fruition in Imo State, so that at the end of the day, just like you said, we do not have to sell land, take care of our health, and accomplish ourselves and our families. Thank you very much, and God bless you. For all our panelists, it is important for us to look at the Q&A, to look at questions that are relevant to you based on your presentations, so that we can also answer to some of the questions on the Q&A platform, so that we can move as quickly and as fast as we can to be able to cover all speakers. We have to move forward to the next speaker under the health investments, which will be Professor Morrissey. Prof, sir, this is your time to make your intervention. Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes, I'll make it very brief. I will share a couple of slides with you, okay, if you will permit me.
Yes, sir.
You enabled?
Yes, Chief, please enable.
Yeah, the main point I want to present was actually leveraging from what was just said by Dr. Francis, namely that drugs can be manufactured here. And it is a very veritable source of income, and it's an investment that has been guaranteed by history that it is one of the quickest and the surest means of growing your wealth. In the country, not many people know this, that all the pharmaceutical companies we have, that what we can do most times is to be able to have drugs that are made elsewhere, what we call active pharmaceutical ingredients. And then here in Nigeria, what we do in the end is actually to formulate them and then see how we can be able to utilize them to make medicines. But in this particular case, in our dear country, we import virtually everything. That at the end of the day, we don't have a pharmaceutical industry, so to speak. And this is an area Imo State can be able to do more than others. Not because we are better than others, but because we have certain innate advantages that we can tap on. The first thing that the pharmaceutical industry will continue being a very growth-driven industry. And then that the issue of manufacturing is getting easier and easier because of some development in the science. But the area I want to be able to focus on is actually that most people, when they look at the pharmaceutical industry, they see one big industry that is one industry that doesn't have segments. You can actually enter into the pharmaceutical industry and concentrate on the personal care. And you can see from COVID-19, a lot of people are just doing the hand sanitizers. The hand sanitizers that are made by the pharmaceutical industry, you will know from those that are made by people who don't have the technical know-how. The other issue, the pharmaceutical proper, which is what people are more interested in because that's the one that they hear. And as I said, we do not have any active pharmaceutical ingredients being made locally in Nigeria. The other one where is the area that we have some little bit of advantage here is the phytomedicine and nutraceuticals. Phyto is plant-based medicine, and then nutraceuticals are those that are in the margin between proper medicine and then food. And then of course the one we all know, the herbal medicine issue. But then on the right hand side of it is what we call the biologicals. Sorry, I've moved faster than I wanted. If you look at the biologicals, you'll be able to see that that's an area, if we do our homework well, we can then be able to be competitive. The biologics here is, for example, you've gone to hospitals when people are really seriously sick. The doctor will talk about having to push some certain biological things that are extracted from animals. We can, for example, farm pigs in the States and extract only the pituitary gland from the pig. And you can say the pig as meat, but the pituitary gland that is extracted from that pig will then be able to fetch more money. And then we can also do what we call biofarming. Biofarming is in a sense that you are actually growing crops specifically for medicine. It's the biofarming that I will spend 1 minute or 2 of my time to be able to explain what we are doing in the state right now. My little organization, Bioresource Development Group, have contacted the state government to be able to enable farmers to participate in the pharmaceutical business. What we then intend to do, that we have identified just 4 plants that regardless of the quantity they grow, they will not be able to meet the international demand for them. And some of them are simple things like bitter leaf, which is Venonia amygdalina. We have a variety which is now grown to be able to develop a particular drug. We call it biofarming because you are making the plant produce drug for you, since we don't have the technical capacity to do manually. So the drug will be made by the plant. The other one is the scent leaf, a particular variety of the scent leaf which we then produce, which then the farmers can grow. And then of course, during the COVID-19, everybody in Nigeria, most people in Nigeria heard about the drug we manufactured, which is IHP detox tea. One of the ingredients that we produce it from. We will have only growers in Lagos and Oyo State because our own people are not into industrial farming. So the farmers that we have who produce for us now are based in Lagos and Oyo State. So these plants can easily be made to be part of the creation of the state. But much more importantly, this is where the caveat comes in. We have now encouraged the state government to introduce pharmacy school at the Imo State University. If properly done, and if Imo State University can see itself as an asset, not a drain pipe, it can be able to use some of these faculties to be able to grow wealth and be able to sustain itself and be able to return an idea to the state. One example, currently we have the ADAPAM. Now there's one we call in pharmacy palm fruit bioactives. Please Google it when you have time. Palm fruit bioactives, when you make ofo, when they boil the palm without necessarily the oil, just for the water from the palm fruit is then able to be concentrated and then dried. It is an active compound that contains phenolics, we call it in the trade. Those things are more expensive than the oil you get from the palm oil. So if the School of Pharmacy, for example, can then start harvesting the other palm fruit, for example, you can then be able to have it as an ingredient for manufacturing. We then have a situation like we have the cocoa trees and so on. We can be able to cultivate cocoa and cultivate coconut. The coconut price in terms of oil, coconut price compares favorably, coconut oil price compares favorably with petroleum price. And yet you don't have to start the issue about licensing and all that if you can have as much. Right now, Nigeria is only able to be about 1% in the growth. What are the point I'm trying to make, that there is this narrow gap between the pharmaceutical crop and the agricultural crop. And if farmers and people who own land in Imo State, since we cannot compete in the traditional agriculture, we don't have the land mass. So we can then be able to work on specialty crops and then go into the pharmaceutical business. Pharmaceutical business from the point of view of deriving active pharmaceutical ingredients, not necessarily in terms of view of manufacturing synthetic products. The synthetic products, why we are not into it as a country, because you need so much of a downside of petroleum products to be able to develop those products. No single pharmaceutical company in the world can start and make everything by themselves. What they do is that each person brings something to the table, others add up to it, and then at the end you have a finished product. But in our own case, because we don't have those products that are behind the scene, the pharmaceutical companies are forced to buy from India, from China, from all over the world, because we cannot make them ourselves. So there is no single pharmaceutical manufacturing company in Nigeria. The other aspect that is very tricky is the fact that the ingredients they use for making tablets and so on are imported. So making pharmaceutical grade starch from our cassava and so on, we need again technical input. That's why having a school of pharmacy at IMSU becomes a useful tool, not necessarily for producing pharmacy, but to be able to have a research base, to be able to have input into this segment of our pharmaceutical manufacture, so that we can then get into biologics and be able to get into biofarming, farming for the purposes of producing drugs, not farming for food. The farming for food is entirely different. Or farming for the purpose of producing drugs is an area, because of the peculiar nature of Imo State, we can be able to tap in. And then what is then necessary again is that if you then have this biofarming in place, you can then be able to make specialty crops that can then compete with the rest of the world in anything that you are doing, so that we'll be able to have sources of income. The state will be able to raise the IGR, the farmers will be happy, and people will be able, instead of everybody waiting for the oil prices as it goes up, as it goes down. I've just listed those 4 crops. These are crops that if you cultivate them, my own company alone will buy, and others also will buy. The Anambra State, I think, exports Venonia and Madalena, that is bitter leaf, for food. But I'm talking about growing specialty bitter leaf, particularly as drugs. And there are so many other crops like that. And if we get into pharmaceutical, not necessarily for the purposes of having a gigantic production setup, that's what. Then the aspect of also investment, I think you start mentioning it in this presentation, is because of the nature of Imo State being in the middle of other states in the southeast and south-south. We can be the distribution hub. We don't need to make anything again. The opposite. We can be distribution hub for the pharmaceuticals, and all we need to do to have a logistic company that will take it from one place to the other. And that's an area we can invest, and then if we invest in that area, all we need is just warehousing. Places like Okigwe in Imo State, which seems to be like in an intersection. Those going to Enugu can take their drugs from there. Those going to River State can take their drugs from there. Abia can take their drugs from there. Anambra will take their drugs from there. Onisha traders will come there and so on. If we can just, the distribution network is so important right now. I think it's either the Indians that are controlling that aspect of our business. So that if we can narrow Imo State and then have the logistics of being able to be a distribution hub for the pharmaceutical sector. So what I'm trying to say here, that apart from the very open one that we make their medicine, people buy it, I'm talking about there are some other high-yielding aspects of pharmaceutical manufacturing which are not very open, and which, because of our own peculiar nature, we stand to be able to add value to our crops, and we'll be able to compete. That we don't have the land mass to be able to do that. If we can go into biologics, biofarming, and also go into the network distribution of the products others manufacture, I think we'll have made some progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. This is an incisive presentation, especially on the commercial agriculture for biologics, that Imo has comparative advantage in those areas. That's what I believe. And that even your company alone can guarantee purchasing of some of the outputs from the farms. And that we're inviting as many people as possible, the investors, especially in agriculture, to look at what we can do in terms of supporting the agricultural value chain, and especially also to make somewhere like Okigwe a hub for logistics, for distribution of pharmaceuticals across the southern states of Nigeria. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and attention, and for your chairmanship of IEDI, and for all that you do for Nigeria. So thank you, and God bless you, sir. So we take on, like to introduce our co-moderator, Dr. Ebere Njoku. She will take over from here and raise some questions from the panelists, from the Q&A session, so that the panelists can give their immediate intervention, while we will also respond at the end of the day to as many of the questions that we cannot answer now. We are also requesting the panelists to go to the Q&A, especially Dr. Francis and Dr. Osuti. If you go to the Q&A panel, you will see a lot of questions that will be directed to you. It will be good also to give some reply while the session is going.
I'm doing so.
Thank you very much, Emeka. I'll read one question for Dr. Francis, because I see that so many questions, and I think that because of time, we'll get our panelists to respond to them in depth, and they'll be sent to the people who have asked the questions via email. So this question is for Dr. Francis. And I'd like to reiterate that he didn't say that this scheme, the health insurance scheme, has already started. It is still a proposition to the government. So Innocent Okabam is asking, how can health insurance help if we don't have good healthcare facilities and providers? And EC Elebri is asking the same question, just as an addition. Health insurance covers which areas? So that's for Dr. Francis. If you answer, how it can help when there's a dearth of facilities and providers, and also give some sort of enlightenment on what areas the health insurance would cover. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Barry. So I did mention that the health insurance scheme in Imo State was launched in 2018. So it's in existence, but we need to stimulate it to be functional, because as at today, it covered not up to up to 2% of our population are covered on health insurance. But I did mention that a lot of our people are very willing to engage. We need to create the opportunity for them to engage. So that's number one. Number two, an insurance scheme, a health insurance scheme is not useful. In fact, it is useless if it cannot provide quality care that is needed by the people. So the ensuring that there are good standards in our primary health care centers, in our general hospitals that provide secondary care, and in our teaching hospitals that are tertiary institutions is very, very useful. So one of the very first things that the health insurance scheme does, in collaboration with the professional groups and the State Ministry of Health and Primary Health Care Agency, is one, the accreditation of health facilities to ensure that they are of the standard that can be used for this. So when they are accredited, they are impaneled to provide those services. And of course, that accreditation is done periodically. So that is the way those standards are set. And those agencies already have clear standards that they use in assessing this. So they work with the professional groups, the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, and the rest of them.
That's fine.
That's
fine. But I think the question also would read to mean that what procedures does the 12,000 naira a year, insurance payment cover?
Excellent. So that's what I was coming to. So right. 12,000 covers a wide range of services. This is very difficult to believe. So it covers primary health care services, a lot of secondary care services, and some tertiary services, and I will not be able to elaborate them here, but the Health Insurance Agency has what we call the operational guideline, which Dr. Onyokoro, who is the Executive Secretary, can share. And within the operational guideline, we have the benefit package. So that benefit package has already been outlined and has already been costed. One good thing with insurance is because of the sheer number of people who will get involved, then the payment in terms of cross-subsidization works very well, even at 12,000 naira, which is sounding very ridiculous, right?
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much. I think the question is answered. Yes. I guess the pool of resources is what spreads the cost. Thank you very much, Dr. Francis. Emeka, I think we can go on. Emeka, can we go on to the next panelist? Okay, I'll take that as a yes, and we'll go on. I think somebody sent me a message that we should have some gender balance and bring on a lady member of the panel. So I think as a natural flow from Professor Maurice Iwu, I would get Mrs. Ogochukwu Ibok, who will share with us opportunities in agriculture in Imo State. So Ogochukwu, if you're here, please just show up. And Ogochukwu Ibok is the founder and the CEO of the Skills Enhancement Center Limited, Science and SME and agriculture-based consulting practice. Science is a household name in the agricultural sector and acts as a strategic partner for investors and helps with fundraising and access to markets. She was on the faculty of the Enterprise Development Center of the Pan-African.
Ebere, excuse me.
Yes, yes.
Could we get on to Ngozi Ngoka? Okay?
Ngozi Ngoka.
Yes.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Is Ngozi, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Ngozi, how are you?
Hi.
Nice to have you here.
Ngozi
we're talking about tourism and entertainment in Imo State and opportunities that are there for all of us in Imo State. Mrs. Ngozi Ngoka is the leading voice in the tourism and entertainment sector in Nigeria. She's the CEO of Zigona Limited and chairman of the board of trustees of the Tourism Consultants Forum of Nigeria and vice president of the Federation of Tourism Association of Nigeria. And she's here to lead us through the opportunities in this sector in Imo State. So Ngozi, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good day, distinguished Imolites and Nigerians. And I want to give a special shout out to my TCF family. I can see a lot of you are here. Thank you for coming. It is indeed an honor for me to be here. And I'm delighted to see that there are so many Imo citizens outside of government who are also interested in making life better for our people. I want to especially thank the organizers of this event for inviting me to participate as a panelist. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ngozi Ngoka. I'm mostly known, especially here in Owerri, as Wanyi Chade Ngoka, and in the tourism community as Lolo of Tourism. Professionally, I'm a travel and tourism consultant, and I have owned my business and worked in the industry for 21 years. I'm currently the founder and director of the Touristry Consultants Forum, and also the vice president of Federation of Tourism Association of Nigeria, with oversight function for the 5 states of the Southeast. I'm here today at the instance of the Imo Economic Development Initiative to speak on how to leverage on tourism, the tourism industry for Imo State's post-COVID-19 recovery and growth. And I want to commend the organizers for recognizing the fact that tourism is the engine room and the key industry for Imo State's recovery. I know some of you will be wondering, what is she talking about? And so I want to show you with this first slide. Right now, we are looking at the whole tourism value chain that we have identified in Imo State. And I have zeroed in on the riverine communities of the riverine community of Uguta. I also looked at the Monkey Colony area at Lawa and the Rolling Stone Hills at Okiwe and the urban city of Owerri, just for sampling. And I believe these samples cover the 3 senatorial districts of Imo State. Now, in these 3 communities, we identified more than 50 distinct economic activities, government agencies and support institutions at some stage of transition which have to do with tourism industry. These activities, because of the sheer size and number of employment opportunities they provide, form the economic base of Imo State and provide about 48% of the state's workforce. Now, I want to break down the slide to this is the breakdown of the sorry, I seem to be having a problem with my screen.
That's fine. Just take your time.
Okay. Okay. So this is a breakdown of the whole tourism value chain made up of tourism industries, goods and services, policies and planning, public-private partnerships, and infrastructure.
I handed over to her. She said either of the.
Emeka, kindly mute your microphone, please, Emeka. Thank you.
I've unmuted him. Yeah. It's still on. Okay, so this is the breakdown of the whole tourism chain, made up of tourism industries, goods and services that supply the tourism industry, institutions that plan and make policies, or in some cases are supposed to make policies, but that they don't. We have public-private partnerships that drive the tourism industry. And finally, we have the infrastructure support and government agencies whose business it is to provide infrastructure to the core tourism businesses. Now, these are some of the industries that we identified. Okay. So these are some of the tourism businesses we have in those 3 areas. Let's just say Imo State. And while we are here, let me quickly remind us how important these activities are to the economy of the state. So this is how everything comes together. In the whole of Imo State, we have 430 hotels, which have the combined capacity for about 15,000 hotel rooms. This was before COVID-19, because I spoke with some of these hotel owners and some of them are frankly closed up. So I'm working at the statistics I had before COVID-19 pandemic. So say we have a weekend of activities, perhaps 3 festivals in different senatorial districts of Imo, and with good marketing strategies, the star power appearances of our Nollywood actors, many of whom are citizens of Imo, footballers, comedians, musicians and artists, many of whom are from here. And then we target 15,000 attendees. Well, and we eventually get about 12,000 who stay in 10,000 hotel rooms. Now, each of these 10,000 people, each person pays 10,000 naira per night for a room. Let's just say it's 10,000 naira. And then they spend 2,000 naira per person on food and 500 naira on transportation. Already, with just these weekend activities, we've injected 25 million naira into the state economy for just one night. I have not even included shopping, tours, fitness and wellness and other activities the tourists may spend money on. But for that weekend alone, a minimum of 75 million naira is injected into the state's economy through tourism activities. So So these green activities that you're looking at will also benefit from tourism activities. These are businesses that provide goods and services which supply the tourism industry. They include press and media, ICTs, marketing and sales, people that ride bicycle, operate boats at Uguta, food factories, manufacturers, cottage industries. There are just so many. Petrol stations, these are businesses that have the trickle-down effect from tourism. And at my last count, I identified about 70 types of tourism and its allied businesses. Unfortunately, these businesses are currently either out of business or operating at very, very, very much below capacity. The tourism industry has been the worst hit so far because the industry is primarily involved in the provision of accommodation, entertainment, food, and other services that have been shut down due to the COVID-19 pandemic, or, some of them are operating at less than their capacity. But there's a silver lining. We're very resilient people, and things are going to get better. As government gradually begins to open and we start getting comfortable, our natural craving for travel and leisure will set in. Nothing can ever take the place of a human connection. So even if people don't want to travel, they will still sometimes travel for business and they'll travel for leisure. In the immediate future, and going by the data of what happened at after 9/11 terrorist attack and the SARS pandemic, things may not get back to normal until after about 5 years. So we're looking at post-COVID-19 tourism for the next 5 years, and then we'll talk about what will happen after the 5 years. So in the immediate future, when they get the travel bug, they have to travel within Nigeria because for so many reasons, that many countries have not opened up, and even when they open, there are so many stringent reasons why travelers are not allowed in, or they are not comfortable going to so many countries. Now, according to IATA, in 2018, the total BSP sales by foreign airlines was about 3 billion naira. Last year, there was a slight increase of 3.7 billion. We do not currently have the statistics from private jets or how much was spent on accommodation and other tourism activities in the countries that Nigerians visited. But now that so many people will be unable to meet the criteria to travel to other countries, at least for some time, it's only reasonable to expect that some of that money will be spent in Nigeria. This is why we have to capture the Nigerian market immediately as a post-COVID-19 remedy for tourism. But at the same time, I can assure you that my colleagues in other countries are working very hard with their governments to ensure that they do not lose patronage from Nigeria, because Nigerians are big spenders and they love to travel. So most of my colleagues from different parts of the world, they are always looking for Nigerian travelers. So despite the difficulties we currently envisage, I think realistically our first competitors for the Nigerian tourists will still be foreign countries. And then in Nigeria, we look at, we have to compete with states like Cross River, Ekiti, Lagos, Ondo, Plateau states, and the Federal Capital Territory. These states have already positioned themselves for both home and international tourism. Now,
so we have about 3 more minutes left, Ngozi. Thank you.
Now, this chart we are looking at have to do with the ministries that will have to up their game. And they should understand their role is to help tourism businesses thrive. They are not just there to register tourism businesses for tax collection. Ideally, these ministries and departments should run as business enterprises that spend money to make money. They should employ all the principles that successful businesses use and treat tourism businesses as their customers. The ministries should prioritize the provision of infrastructure, such as power. These ministries, should prioritize the provision of infrastructure, such as power, waste management systems, security, and public health services to communities where they can generate income from tourism, then use the proceeds to develop other communities. My goddaughter and my son, my goddaughter Amaka and my son will not forgive me if I don't talk about standardization of our state's tourism products. Nigerians are very, very sophisticated travelers, and they usually ask detailed questions about destinations. So if, and they want to know what to expect, they tend to return and bring people along with them. Standardization will also play a large role in marketing our products to our people in the diaspora, who constantly tell me they want to bring tourists home and experience Southeast Nigeria. Professor Iwu, in his opening remarks, talked about investors. Investors will not come, tourism investors will not come if there are no standards and clear regulations. And I also agree with Chief Stan Eke that we have to invest in education. While we're investing in education, let us talk about tourism education. We have to train the people that work in the tourism industry because it's a very, very productive sector. It is now time to support the tourism industry for our state's economic recovery and growth. This is where the support institutions that you're looking at now, they are very vital for this.
Okay, so we should be rounding up now because of time.
Government should work with organized private sector and set up an impact assessment team to properly monitor the damage done to the tourism industry. Some organized private sectors like the TCF have already done this assessment, and we've identified measures such as tax holidays for business owners, tourism business owners, interest-free loans for tourism poor businesses. Tourism is a serious business in Imo, and it is the state's largest employer of labor. And I think because of time, I want to stop. I don't know why I have been giving less time than the other people, but I'll take questions later, and we can touch on the other things that I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Right, Lolo, I will apologize about the time because they're prompting me to make everybody speak a bit faster. That's why. And the time set for the whole meeting is almost gone. So we've had to really keep to time. My sincere apologies if that seemed intrusive. All right. Thank you so much. Emeka, should we move on to the next? You're muted. Yes, thank you. Tourism is so important because, as we all know, as Lolo has also mentioned, very soon we have to look inwards for this country to be sustainable. And tourism, as we know, for the immediate future post-COVID would be internal. People are less likely to go abroad for tourism. So whatever we can do to boost up or beef up our tourism in Imo State is a very welcome idea. Thank you. Emeka, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Njoku. Our next panelist will be Dr. Ernest Mwaka. Dr. Mwaka was the founding executive secretary of the Nigerian Content Board, as he was seconded from NMPC to head that group. Our understanding is that Dr. Mwaka was one of the brains behind the National Content, or the Nigerian Content Board for oil and gas local content. So I'd like to share with him and for him to give us his insight into how Imo can be a hub, a regional hub for oil and gas logistics and supply business, including local content. Dr. Mwaka, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you, Emeka. Am I on now?
Yes, you're on, please.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present here, and I will stand on existing protocol just to save time, since we've all respected the distinguished participants. So I'll quickly go through a few slides because many of the things we wanted to say in the introduction have been covered by the previous speakers. But it's important to note that Nigeria has been affected seriously by COVID. The healthcare people discussed the statistics. Also, the supply chain has been impacted seriously. This is about oil and gas, and the information there is just indicating that the importance of oil and gas to Nigeria. I won't dwell so much on the overview of Imo State. Many of us are familiar with these numbers that have been covered previously. But let me state that if this was particularly a contemporary discussion on oil and gas, I'll be talking about some of those issues that we always talk about in Imo State: the recovery of Imo oil wells that are not accredited to us, absence of industry presence in Imo State, environmental degradation, ownership of assets by Imo interests, MOUs with operating and service companies, employment of Imolites in the industry. But I want to actually stay around for today's discussion, leveraging the experience we had in oil and gas industry to stimulate capacity development and access the key sectors of the local economy. Now, we find that what we did in the oil and gas industry regarding in-country value addition can be replicated across the economy. And in fact, we can domicile the same kind of policies and strategies in Imo State to help us. So I'm going to go on that discussion and talk about what we can do to use oil and gas as a stepping stone for launching industrialization at the grassroots level of Imo State. And these are the impacts. Again, it's all obvious, the impacts of the COVID-19, so I won't dwell on them again. What I want to say is that even though it's been catastrophic, we, the people of Imo State and Igbo people, we have gone through this type of catastrophe before. We survived the Civil War, and we already have it in our DNA. Our children have known the stories of the Civil War. We know that we will not perish because of the pandemic, and that we can all come back up alive again. We have that capacity. We've experienced it before. So we need to face a new reality. We need to. I need to talk about the quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, which says that today our very survival depends on our ability to stay awake, to adjust to new ideas, to remain vigilant, and to face the challenge of change. This applies to what we're trying to do today. So we have to face a new reality and a new approach to development. The global lockdown has demonstrated that we can't escape from ourselves. And so those of us that thought that we can feather nests abroad and set up islands abroad, and so that if there's any such thing that happens in Nigeria, we just run away, have found out that that philosophy cannot stand. So we must come together as Imo sons and daughters to fix our homeland. And that's why it's very important to look at these things beyond just the normal rhetoric of create jobs, create an enabling environment. How do we do that? We need to shift away from burdening the state with excess employees. Our experience is that state government, federal government, they budget money. Let's create 1,000 jobs in every local government in Nigeria. How do you create the jobs? Just budget 60,000 naira, employ people. What are those people going to be doing? What are you creating? Are you just creating a place where people go to collect stipends? So we want to change that to creating a vanguard of employers. People who will now be employing people. And when you create employers, they're more likely to create job opportunities and productive labor force. This is what our brother Leostaneka has been talking about. When you create employers of labor, like Leostan can compete with many governments in the number of jobs that he creates. Then, having created that crop of employers, you also need to recognize the power of the youth as the development drivers. In our country, and in Imo State especially, our people our major assets. And the real critical assets are not just those of us that are almost, we have retired. It's the youth that we have to look up to. And then we have to commit to train them for entrepreneurial and vocational pursuits. It's no longer the time we used to train. When we were in the university, in our final year, we were taking newspaper cuttings and looking for employment, Shell, an MPC, the federal government ministry of what. Today's reality is that those jobs are not there. And you cannot just switch on or budget money for them. We need to create from the grassroots another way of doing these things. And that's why we must change our mindset. So how do we implement this philosophy? We need to capture the data of our existing infrastructure in Imo State, the industries, the shops, the hotels, the academic institutions. We need to know what we have, first of all, in a very scientific way, use the technologies of today to, and even use this same youth to gather information, then capture the youths themselves. Those, I mean, these days, 50-year people classify themselves as youths, but let's take 18 years to 40 years and categorize them into various groups based on gender, academic, vocational qualifications, their field experience, and their skill levels. Then we do a gap analysis. This our group can actually anchor that kind of thing. And like you are in a position to organize that kind of activity. Then let's focus on shop floors. Well, I mean shop floors, not just the virtual shop floor. The virtual shop floors are very, very forward-looking and very, very interesting. The jobs they will create and the money they will bring in. But to get people to learn by doing, you need to have shop floors where they're going there and they feel the act of production, whether it's agro-allied, whether it's based on services and even healthcare. We need to have shop floors. And then my discussions in the next slides will show you how those shop floors can be created easily. Then we design special programs for the new economy. This is around the area, coding to support AI, renewable technology for alternative power. Then again, we go back to the issue of standards. How do we get certifications? How do we put in the heads of our people that when somebody wants to come and tile your house, you ask him for a certificate? These days, people just say, I know a tile you bring. But all those guys you bring from Togo, they're all carrying certificates, meaningful certificates. So we need to get back into that. And some of these things are things that government can do, but the government needs to do it with in partnership with the private sector. And then funding, of course, always comes to play. We need to create the fourth investment bandwagon. Imo State has, and in fact, Igbo land, and to some extent the whole of Nigeria, we operate the bandwagon effect. So when people hear that hotels are good business, people run. Everybody abroad, people here, you have some money, just the way our parents used to build 6 flats for rent, people now build hotels. And the issue of standards comes up again. People build these hotels because they believe that it just brings revenue and that ROI is high. So school hostels, restaurants, lounges, nightclubs, that's in tourism. That's a lot of people have run to that zone. Again, another zone that people have done very well in, and which is helping create value in the system, the malls, the supermarkets, modern markets, spare parts markets, which government really organizes, and mechanic villages. On the other side of services, you have private schools, universities, vocational institutions, churches. Churches are also things people have really used to create value, farms and plantations. Now, something is missing in everything. We don't have an industrial zone in Enugu. I've not seen any industrial zone in Namibo or in Nkwe. Government has earmarked some places for markets, for schools, but there is no deliberate attempt, apart from maybe the industrial area in Norway. I've not seen many industrial areas in these other places. We need to create that. The government has to now delineate some places and say, these are industrial zones. And what is the case for mini industrial and business parks? We can get many spin-offs. The model I have here that I'm going to show some pictures in the next slide are easy to assemble and scale. We can assemble them in the 4-plot area, and then we begin to scale it. Manageable, it's got manageable setup costs, and it can be done in groups. The asset management model, it's easy to do public-private or communities, things like cooperative societies can set up and run them. But it can employ large numbers of people. And then it's an opportunity for of diaspora investors who want the place to safely plug in their money without having to come and start worrying about buying land and things like that. I say this is important because it brings in shop floors and business space with shared utilities at grassroots level. Small businesses with little capital can lease shop and equipment for short periods. You know, when we do all this training, we train welders, we train tailors, we train people, and then we send them away. Some people buy generators for welders they've trained, buy them a welding machine and buy them metal. But you know what? 2 months later, you see those welding machines up for sale because they don't have the other factors of capacity to help them use those things. And then the flexibility and diversity of services. Each park can host tailoring, fabrication, machining, electrical, cold storage, furniture, food processing, anything. So you have them in clusters like that. And then one of the greatest opportunities for the grassroots is that it creates facilities for post-training attachments and internships, something that is very lacking. Most people that we put through training, once they come out, they don't have anywhere to actually practice some of the training, from welding to tailoring to computer education. So we need to get a robust supply chain, and the things I've discussed on the previous slide will help us actually to get these container industrial parks. I'll show you some models of how this would work. But let me remind you that it is our people that mine coal in Enugu in the early days. Those railway lines that are running in Nigeria today, it's our people that physically did it. The roads, the houses, the furniture in the eastern region, we had people doing it. We need to get back to that mode where we mobilize our youth. Don't come and be following me around at a political talk. Let's go and create some things for them. Focus. So the oil and gas industrial park concept is something that I started when I was executive secretary in NCDM. So I borrowed a few slides of what they're doing now. It was a good strategy, and it looked like it was too far-fetched when we started it. But I'll show you pictures. The Calabar Industrial Park is already progressing. Bayelsa is already progressing too. Imo is in the tender process. We had problems in Imo. Imo was slated to be the second one, but because of C of O, the ease of doing business, we couldn't get our C of O until Emeka had gave us. Now the governor is working with us to make sure that the current governor is working with us to make sure that our project starts before the end of the year. So look at a typical industrial park. This is the Bayelsa one. It's got all this stuff, and it was conceived in 2014. The contracts were awarded in 2018. And look at where they are. This is very, very comprehensive. And you can see what it's the makeup of the individual units. In Imo State, we should have minimum one of these in the 3 senatorial zones. And then we should then create the clusters of what the senatorial zone is known to do. Okigwe has minerals. So we create clusters of people to service that kind of thing. Uguda is like oil and gas, fishes, tourism. We create the value chain around those things that are dominant in the senatorial zone. But beyond that, we need to do so these are some of the things that we could do with the oil and gas arrangements, right? The ANO project is a very critical project for Imo State. It's ongoing now with SEPLAT, and we need to go in there and see what we can do. SEPLAT has a very aggressive community relationship arrangement, but we need to focus and see how we get entrepreneurial groups, not just giving the community 50 slots. The oil company should help the community organize entrepreneurial groups so that even when they finish the construction, these entrepreneurial groups can use the new skills and capacity to do other things outside the oil and gas industry. Oil and gas industry is not something that really keeps jobs, but we must use it as a launch pad to create capacity. And that's the way I want us to focus on these things. These numbers are achievable. So what are the low-hanging fruits and quick wins? I would say we should go for these mini industrial clusters. These things are to be done out of containers. And if you look at this, it's like, this is the simple one. It's not like the NCDMB type. You put it in a place, get containers, stack them, and equip them for tailors, for welders, for furniture makers, for cold storage, things that are dominant in the area of your operations. This is a 3D of what a typical container industrial park, mini park would look like. So essentially, we will need to develop this a little bit more. 10, 15 minutes is not enough for me to really show the full extent of this, but this thing would help the youths focus. If the government can come out and make a policy and say, every local government chairman designate land of 2,000 to 5,000 square meters in your community, close to where it's very conducive, and then we create the road and bring power to the place. So some community associations can sponsor the ownership of the containers, and then the small users can lease to have a management office, and people will use that. That's something that I just thought I should share with you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm done.
The knowledge economy, opportunities for Imo State with Njenje. Okay, over to you, please. Hello, Abia.
Thank you very much, Emeka. We're going to go next to Mr. Njenje Uzodimma in the knowledge economy and opportunities for Imo State. Mr. Njenje, you have 10 minutes, and for some reason, I'm the one who's the time bully. It warned me to make sure everyone keeps the time. Emeka is looking good, and I'm looking bad. Yeah, but you have 10 minutes. Yeah, you have 10 minutes to tell us why we should navigate towards a knowledge-based economy. And just for reference, that's my field. I'm very keen on that, so I'm looking forward to hearing you. A bit about Njenje. Njenje is a former general manager for Microsoft for the West African.
I think. Can I?
Yeah.
Can I steal back that time from you and just use it for let me steal back that time for use it for the presentation directly. I don't think the audience really wants to know about me. I think they want to hear what I have to say.
Go ahead.
Well, it's important for the West African sub-region, and I'm moving forward in knowledge economy. We'll be advocating to the youth and not so young on how to leverage their knowledge and make Imo State a knowledge center that serves the global world, just like Bangalore in India. Please go ahead, Mr. Njenje. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And let me just stand on existing protocols and just dive straight in. They've been awesome presentations today and a lot of content. Because of the shortness of time, I have a slide deck that's about 20 or 30 slides. I'm not sure which one. At about 4 a.m., you lose track of how many slides you've created. But I just want to make a few points just at the very beginning. One of them would be that in 2019, about $660 million of foreign direct investment came into the technology sector in Nigeria. And of that money, $663 million, 95% of it ended in Lagos. And there's got to be one. It ended up in Lagos and didn't go beyond that. Last week as well, Google announced a 6-month certification program that's the equivalent of a university degree. And the requirements to enter that program are exactly zero. You don't need to have WIET, you don't need to have a university degree, you don't need to have any degree, you just need to be able to walk through the program. And in 6 months, you get a certification that's the equivalent of a 4-year university degree. People who graduate from that program will be data scientists. And a data scientist has about a starting income between $30,000 and $50,000 a year. At $50,000, that's approximately 28 million in income. What is required to create this kind of environment that allows this level of growth, explosive growth, actually to occur? Some people talk about universities, but in Nigeria today, there are about 162 universities or so, and the total population enrollment is about 1.7 million. That's less than 1% of our population. At 500,000 to 700,000 admissions a year in Nigerian tertiary institutions, is this really the place for us to look? And this is why I found the presentation by both on tourism, by Dr. Mboka and by Dr. Mwapa on the skill centers, absolutely important. So this will be the pivot that I'm going to focus on. Interestingly, Harvard University last month said that by the year 2030, only 10% of the universities in America will survive. That's 50 or 60. All the other universities are going to close because they will no longer be relevant as universities and presently constituted in the 21st century. How much more in Nigeria? We have a situation in Imo, as is the situation across Nigeria, and it's about the youth bulge, and I'll delve into some of that. Our problem, or what we consider to be our problem, those 3 million people who should be in employment in the state and who should be productive in the state, that we consider to be a problem today are actually the solution. Our challenge is how do we transform those 2 million people into productive individuals and create human capital that will drive the 21st century. And that's the focus of my presentation. I'll run very quickly through it to try to make the point as we go along that this COVID thing that is frightening everyone has actually given us an opportunity to have a reset. Arundhati Roy says the pandemic is impossible. And what does she mean by that? I think the critical thing to take out of what she's saying is that every pandemic changes the world. And this is the first one that has come in 100 years of this scale and this magnitude. And every time when the world has faced a pandemic, there's been a fundamental disruption and things do not go back to normal. But increasingly across Nigeria and across considerations that we're seeing from governments, from individuals, from organizations, there's a race to return to normality. But that normality is something that we should avoid. We should be bold and courageous in the future. I'm going to quickly run through the slides just to get to the point where we can have a discussion. I think it's very important for us to understand that Nigeria, about 50% of our population is poor. And this spreads across most of the country, rather a bit evenly. And that means that with a population of 200 million, projected to grow to 350 million by the year 2030, if we don't change the poverty index fundamentally by disrupting the way that people become productive in our environments, post this, and this was the understanding pre-COVID, post-COVID, we're going to be facing a huge crisis. There is so many poor people in the country that the rich and even those who are able to make a living will find no peace. We need to address this at the national level, and we need to address it at the level of the state. And I'll go into some detail around this. I think we need to kind of like understand what choices we have. And this slide will just sketch out in very brief detail what those things are. Essentially, we're going to face a situation post-pandemic where the economy is going to recession. The forecast is between -4% to -8%. But the most critical number there is the number of people who will be unemployed, who are likely to be unemployed. And that figure, given the situation that we're at before, which is about 25% underemployment, is going to be add about 29 million to 32 million people into unemployment as a direct result of COVID. And that just swells that number of people who are not economically engaged, don't have disposable income, are unable to acquire or to pay for basic human services, and therefore are a threat to your system. In addition to that, you're going to have a challenge around the FX rates. I mean, when I did these slides, I was initially at 415 naira, but yesterday, I think the dollar went to 470. What that means to the naira, what that means essentially is that the system that we're going to be operating in the next 6 to 18 months is one of a huge economic squeeze. And we need to get answers for that. And as I said, our biggest problem is going to be around unemployment and what we're going to do to address that. Significantly, there are a few sectors that are likely to grow. As a consequence of the conditions in which we find ourselves, certainly food is going to be a critical issue. There will be growth in health and social services that's powered largely by donor funding, and chemicals and pharmaceuticals which support that. But there are other areas to watch, and those areas to watch, I think, are in the areas of ICT, education, and finance. And I'll explain a bit more as we go along, because this is where the opportunity really lies. And you will notice that that tourism is not called out here, but there are very important points here brought up in Dr. presentation that I will touch on as we go forward. So how does all this affect the digital economy? I believe that we need to walk through this door, open this door, and just walk through it. We have to choose deliberately and intentionally not to wallow in the misery and the tragedy of COVID-19, but to understand in what ways has it fundamentally disrupted our environment and what do we do to swing that around. One of the most important things is where we currently are. That we're doing this by webinar is in itself a huge disruption. Prior to this, we all would have gathered in a way. So what has happened is that all of us who are now participating and not physically in a way have extracted income from the state government, because this is money that we could have spent in hotels, as Dr. Ngaka was pointing out, but now we're doing this virtually. What then is the future for MICE? What's the future for hospitality? What's the future for all kinds of industries that require an aggregation and congregation of people in one place in order to generate income? We believe that the move into the virtual and the physical and the digital world has a plus, but it does so at the expense in many cases of the analog, and we'll explore some of that. So back to the youth bulge. It's important to understand that in Imo State, this is the kind of like a demographic report, how the demographic breaks out. You have between the ages of 15 and 64, you have about 59, almost 60% of the population. If you consider that the people in Nigeria today, currently, you get to JS3. The statistics from the Federal Ministry of Education in 1986 said that JS3 students, only 14% of the total number of JS3 students will advance into SS1. That means that 84% of the children in JS3 today in all of our schools will fall out of that track and have to fall into something. What will they fall into? And this is a critical age, that pivotal age of 13, 14, and in some cases 15. What do they fall into? The idea is that they should fall into a technical and vocational education system that captures them and equips them with skills that are certifiable skills that enable them to either become entrepreneurs or valuable employees. And just like what Dr. Wapa had pointed out, we have this massive bulge of young people who, if we do not do something constructive with them, will become automatically a problem to us. Imo State falls into, most of the cities in Imo State fall into the cluster of fragile cities, what we call fragile cities. There's a constant pull and push that creates a drain from the rural area into the urban areas. And as people move into the urban areas, if they don't have education, they don't have jobs, then they start to create the kind of insecurity that you find inside our cities. And you start to see these ungoverned spaces emerging, and large numbers of homeless, undocumented, and idle and productive young people are gathered in urban centers, creating problems for a larger system. To solve this problem, we need to do precisely what Dr. Wapa has pointed out. We need to distribute and redistribute the way the economic foci, so that we don't have to go aggregating themselves in cities and becoming a problem and a burden onto the system. There are four pivotal things that will take the scale. One is a massive investment in human capital. The second is technological readiness.
Can I interrupt? You have a few more minutes left?
Yes, please.
Right.
Yes, I'm going to. Yes, I'm rounding up. We have human capital. These are the four pivotal issues that we need to look at: human capital, technology readiness, which includes entrepreneurship and innovation, and then the finance that supports the evolution of new businesses, and of course the state's quality that drives that. And I'll quickly show you what this means. Here are the maps that show you the kind of connectivity in terms of technological readiness that we have in Nigeria. And you would see that on the left-hand side, there's huge bandwidth that's available along the coast of Africa. And then it comes into Nigeria and it needs to be taken up country through pipes and fiber. Without building a robust fiber network in the whole of Imo State, it becomes difficult for it to actually drive connectivity that pushes other things. And you can see from there that there is some density. With a small landmass, we can actually create incredible amounts of connectivity in that space and power the new economy. To do that, you can see here that we have to move large numbers of people into what we call the cloud economy. The informal and invisible economy needs to move in educated and unemployed, and then the urban formal. The rural economy that just in a little bubble outside there becomes a challenge. If we don't find a way of moving them onto the same digital world, then essentially what we're doing is we're creating a digital divide and more this. I want to come back to Lagos because it's absolutely important for us to understand this. There is a reason why Lagos accounts for 95% of FDI in the system, and why it is seen as the hub for the new economy in Nigeria. We need to find a way to turn away into that, turn Imo State into that. to do so, there's specific things that we have to do, and this is the most important. We need to find a way to create this nexus between science, technology, and industry, where you drive a lot of young people into these environments where they are constantly innovating and creating new things and creating new asset classes in terms of intellectual property, and they're innovating around the challenges that we have locally. Without creating these clusters, we will be challenged to meet the economy, including, let me just like these past 2 slides. We're not giving this dynamic city right hand side. We've got to high speed.
Hello, have we lost Njenje?
I think we've lost him for a minute back there.
Yes.
While he's getting back together, could Ogo Epoch please get ready? We'll give Njenje 2 minutes and see when he can come back to us.
Yeah, Njenje, you're welcome.
I was cut short by technology stuff. So I think I was the energy person. Thank you very much. And I hope that when the questions do come up, we can expatiate.
Thank you very much, Njenje.
Thank you very much, Emeka. I think I can stop there.
Yes, thank you very much.
Right. I do believe, I know this time is very short, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's hardly enough to really put the points across. We'll take the questions later, even if it's via email. So apologies for the rush. And as like in the chat, there is a time for struggle. Fine, thank you. So the next person we have is Mrs. Ogochukwu Ibok, who will talk to us a bit about agriculture and the future it holds for Imo State. I would skip introductions, but I did that earlier. So Ogochukwu Ibok, if you're here, please, the floor is yours.
I'm here. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Please go ahead. And remember, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
That's fine. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. And because of time, I stand on existing protocol. So basically, I'm going to talk about agriculture. The truth is, with everything we've spoken about today, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So with everything we've spoken about today, the point is that everybody has to eat. That's the truth. If we don't eat, everything else is a moot point. So basically, the first thing I want to look at is the impact of COVID-19 on, generally the agricultural sector in Nigeria. A lot of grounds have been covered in recent times because there's a lot of interest in agriculture in Nigeria, but we're still on shaky ground. Over 40% of what we plant is wasted. A lot of our fruits and vegetables, 40% goes to waste. We have an estimated loss of $10 billion annually in missed opportunities from groundnut, cocoa, palm oil, and cotton alone. By the time we add other food crops, you can see that this figure will go up extremely high. We're the largest producer of cassava in the world, but yet we have very low yield per hectare. We have the potential to produce 40 metric tons of cassava per hectare, but yet we produce 13.63 metric tons. Our import bill, depending on who you ask, is between $4 billion and $22 billion yearly on food. And if you think about the fact that we import tomato, we import palm oil, that we import maize, we import almost everything that we can produce locally. There's no reason why these things are not being produced locally. And then we look at the pre-COVID-19 Nigeria. We have a high demand, limited supply in everything. Every single aspect of food production in Nigeria, we have very limited supply. Most of the cereals we eat, the fruits and the vegetables we grow come from the north. An example is that in 2018, the fruits and the vegetables we produced was about 16.4 million tons. 79% of this came from the north. But majority of the consumers are in the south. So basically, we consume more than we produce. So an example is that Kaduna, Kano, and Plateau states produce 50% of the key crops we consume in Nigeria. So these are tomatoes, potatoes, okra, and onions. So what this means for us during COVID-19, it has a major impact, because think about it. The lockdown meant that food was not getting through. Now, if food was not getting through from the north to the south, it has a boomerang effect on everything. First of all, a lot of wastage occurred during the time of the lockdown, the extreme time when no movement was allowed. The wastage levels went from 40% to 70% because a lot of the food crops were not getting through. And then also, it resulted in demotivated farmers, because what then happened was that because of the wastage the farmers suffered, they were no longer interested in planting. And remember that this started at the beginning of the planting season. So a lot of the farmers were not even able to buy the seeds they needed because they had lost so much money in their inability to transport the crops from one location to the other. Another thing we have to understand is that a lot of the farm work is done by migratory laborers. And these migratory laborers were not able to move from one location to the other, which meant that the activities in the farm were stunted. They couldn't produce, they couldn't do anything. And then logistics, and then inputs. A lot of the seeds that we use for planting come from outside the country. And the few that were in the country, the local farmers did not have access to this. And then job losses. A lot of people lost their job. So foods that people would ordinarily eat became luxury. And they focused on subsistence foods, the ones that you just had to eat to survive. Anything else outside of that became a luxury. And what that means is that we now have poor nutrition. So we have a lot of people who are not getting the right foods that they need. So the thing is that there's a lot of discussions that we could have on this, but because of time, I'm just going to limit it to this and then talk about Imo State and how this is an opportunity for the state. Yes, we know that the COVID-19 is, yes, I know, I'm trying to rush, I'm sorry. So we know that COVID-19 has had a devastating impact. However, it also presents us with a lot of opportunities. Now, let's think about this. If in the next 5 years, let's assume we come out of this because we're still in the middle of COVID-19, it's not over. Let's assume that we find a solution and everybody goes back to life as we know it, or whatever our new life is going to be. 5 years down the line, this happens again. This time, it's more severe. Food is not getting through. How do the people in the South, how do people of Imo State feed themselves? Where do you get their tomatoes? Where do you get your onions? Where do you get the things that you need for your people to survive? That is where the problem is. And so this is an opportunity to make sure that this doesn't happen again. That if this happens again, we are able to feed ourselves. So the first thing Imo needs to do is become a large-scale producer of agricultural produce and mitigate the impact of unexpected situations in the future. We should consider an agro park. Dr. Nwapa talks about having a containerized park. We should consider an agro park in Imo State. We should even have a series of them. We know that Imo doesn't have a lot of land mass, but with whatever we have, we should be able to do a lot. And these agro parks should be comprehensive in the sense that we should have research centers, we should have training facilities, and then we should have a lot of land that we can lease out to people. And I suggest that for continuity, it is important that the government sets this up and then gives it to the citizens, so that if the next government comes in, it's not going to be shut down. Let the government provide the infrastructure, provide the land, so that the private citizens and people of Imo State will be able to benefit from it. It's important that we also encourage people to grow what they eat. People should have home gardens. We should begin to encourage our people so that we get the basic nutrition, vegetables. We can plant vegetables in our homes. We can do the basic things that we can, so that we avoid this kind of situations in the past. Imo State has advantage in cassava. Imo State has advantage in plantain, in oil palm, and in cashew. But it is not being explored to its full advantage. Professor Iwu talked about bio farming. It is critical, because the Imo State can decide to be known for a particular product. You can choose maybe cassava, for instance. Last week, the CBN has said that they will no longer issue pro forma invoices for maize importation in Nigeria. What this means is that there's a lot of opportunity in maize production. Imo State can decide to become the go-to state for everything maize, from research to training to every aspect of maize production. So I think that the opportunity that the coronavirus has presented is one where the states can become self-sufficient, so that in the next, when we have, hopefully we're never going to have this kind of situation again, that if in the next maybe 100 years, I hope not, anyway, that we have this kind of situation that the states can fend for itself. That if there's a lockdown, we don't rely on food coming from the north to get to us in Imo State. I think I'll stop here for now, so that I don't overrun my time.
Thank you so much, Ogochukwu. That was very brisk and very enlightening. Emeka, I'll hand over back to you.
Yes, Severi, thank you very much, Ogo. Thank you very much. With all the presentations made by everyone in the panel and all the panelists with their incisive contributions and recommendations, what is the role of federal government of Nigeria in terms of investment, and how to incentivize investment in all the sectors of Imo State? So we brought in the Director of Communications, Mr. Emeka, for Director of Communications, Nigeria Investment Promotion Council. Presented here today by Mr. Emeka. They have intervened in terms of investment in so many states of Nigeria, and so many of these states are better for it today. So, Mr. Emeka, I hand over to you to share with us what the Imo State government can benefit from the federal government of Nigeria, especially through NIPC. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I would just like to use one of my slides, only the first page of the slides that spoke about Imo State. I think I'm unable to share from here. It says I can't share.
They should enable you. We'll enable you to share right now.
Please empower him quickly.
It's done.
Okay, you can share now. Okay. Yeah, you're sharing. I see you.
I'm sharing, yes. Okay, so because of time, I will just use only one slide. And that is the slide. Okay, I just use this slide for my presentation. For this opportunity and for a great job they are doing in restarting Imo State and taking Imo State to the heights. I would like to say that in NIPC, we see Imo State, just like maybe every other person, as the heartland of Eastern Nigeria. But we also believe that Imo State has what it takes to be the heartland of Nigeria. When we look at the
economic potentials, the investment opportunities in Imo State, it becomes clear to us that Imo State can indeed do a lot, much better than it is doing at the moment. If you look at the slide I'm showing, it is especially prepared for Imo State in the sense that it captures the greatness of Imo State, what everybody would like to know about Imo State in terms of the economy, in terms of the investment potentials of Imo State. So if you look at that slide,